Welcome back to Mage Knight with the next scenario of the Apocalypse Dragon expansion, which is against the dragon. So last time we've played against the horseman, now it's the time for the dragon, and then there's the final scenario where you actually fight both at the same time in a full-length scenario. Against the dragon is a shorter scenario with Blizzard rules, where you fight up to 2 days and 2 nights, which is the reason why we started 1 fame and a +1 influence bonus, so 2 reputation. And we have 4 mana dice and 4 units in the offer. So the final goal is to find and defeat the dragon. And once you are searching for the lair and until the time you have attacked it for the first time, the dragon will take its turn, so it has its own round order token. And sometimes it will destroy a site, sometimes it will not do anything, and sometimes it will attack a player. Which in solo means it will destroy a site in the first turn. Then after the third it will attack the player. And from the 5th turn onwards, it will always destroy a site. So this is also somewhat limiting your potential for a single round, because you probably do not want to play a 5th, 6th, and 7th turn and have 3 sites being destroyed. In this scenario, we only have 5 countryside tiles and then 3 core tiles. One of them will be the lair, one of them will be a neutral city where the dummy and I have a shield, and the last one will just be a regular tile. So you could even find the lair in the first core tile, which does mean rushing to the core tiles and or the dragon is really feasible, I think, in this scenario. The basic settings say to set all the heads of the dragon, so he has 4 regular heads and 1 control head, to level 4, which I think, as usual with these kinds of scenarios for an advanced player, is probably too easy. So the first question I really had to face was, what do I actually set this to? I'm thinking of something like 7, 8, or 9. And looking through the heads a bit, especially the control head, which either attacks you with a psychic attack, or improves the attacks of all the other heads, or attacks you with the attack of a possessed enemy, like a dungeon enemy, a dragon, or both at level 11. I do want to go for a psychic attack just to get more knowledge with this, so the only psychic attacks after level 5 and 6 are at level 9. So that finally was the reason why I am going with level 9. So there's a little bit of room to go for 12, but let's see how this goes. So the controller will attack with a psychic attack of 9 if I assault a dragon. It always has the level of the highest other head of the dragon. So in theory, you could even mix and match the levels of the heads, I think. But let's just go with level 9, which does mean that one head attacks with a brutal fire attack of 8 and will have a physical resistance. Another head will have 2 physical poisonous attack of 5 and will have ice resistance. The other 2 heads will actually have cold fire resistance. So that's a bit special with level 9 here. And one attack will be a level 7 ice attack that freezes. The other will be a swift physical attack of 8. I've laid out the heads in this particular fashion here so I can also see level 1, 2, and 3. Because if the dragon attacks you, it will not be determined by the level you set for the scenario, but it will be the round number. So in the first round, if you get attacked, it's all level 1 heads. So it will all be attacks of 2, which is 1 ice, 1 fire attack, which is freezing or paralyzing and or brutal. And the 2 physical attacks are poisonous and swift. But in round 2, it will shift to level 2. So this attack, for example, becomes physical. So arguably even easier because the armor does not matter. But this head will suddenly be swift and poisonous. This one will still be freezing, but just in quotes an attack of 3, which is again arguably easier to block than 2 ice. And you do not want to ignore this attack. And this attack will be brutal instead of poisonous. So there will be some slight increase, but this does not depend on the difficulty. They take up a lot of space, but I think it's good to see the armor and the attacks of the final attack, so I can prepare the adequate range attack and block if I need block. But we also need to see level 1, 2, and 3, and I do not want to always get these out and put them away again. As for the heroes, without the expansion there were 7, so I always left out the hero I played and rolled between the other 6. And then I rolled again with the spot that was taken with the hero that I played, so there was still a chance I could roll again. But this was the way I determined the 2 heroes. I then decided between which one to play, because I do want to get forced to play other heroes. I do not just want to pick one, but I also do not just want to roll for one and be stuck with this. I still want to have a choice. Now that there are 8 heroes, I have to switch that up, and I, to be honest, just left them both out. So the hero I played and the dummy, and just rolled with 2 dice. and it came up as Krang and Tovak. And Tovak sounds like a good idea to be able to block more because it's really a block heavy character, but I do not want to play the perfect match character, at least on paper, in the first try, so I'm going with Krang. I like Krang, and Tovak will be my dummy again. I'm probably saying again because he was my dummy quite a lot, because I'm usually not favoring Tovak over other heroes. But I do not dislike him, I usually just play other heroes, and in this scenario, as I said, I did not want to pick like the perfect match. And this is the point where I put out the thinking indicator again, because even though this is Blizz rules, I anticipate this still to be a long video, so I will probably make 2 versions of it again, and there will be a short. But let's talk about this setup now. I did make sure that of the 3 new tiles, there are at least 2 in the 5. I did not want to pick 3 because then a majority of tiles would just be the new tiles. So I rolled between the 3 and these 2 came out. And then for the initial setup, quite luckily, we have one of the new tiles, one of the old. The old one is actually 180 degrees rotated, but the new tile is in its original position, which is also quite interesting for you, I guess, that you can see how this new tile actually would be in a world without random tile orientation. So by rotating this tile, there's a keep now facing me. That's interesting, but it's in hillside, so it's 3 movement. There's a white crystal mine and a village. And from the unit offer, there are swordsmen and guardian golems that I can both hire in the keep. And there's actually nothing that I can hire in the village. So this would not even be an advantage if the village would be turned towards me. So I'm somewhat tempted to try to go for the village and try to hire something quite early, because Krang, of course, is also good with units, if you want to call it good, but you can at least threaten or coerce them and then use them again in a single round. So that's very nice. And the guardian golems might help with defending against the heads, as can the swordsmen, to be honest, because they also have a block. These are all level 2 units, so none of the units actually like well suited to just wound from the head and then heal easily, because they all take heal 2 to heal again. But nevertheless, the guardian golems do have physical resistance, so that might be something to keep in mind, because there will always be heads that are just physical, and poisonous and swift and so on doesn't do anything if you just shrug it off. So that's quite interesting. The new tile is the tile with Oasis, a deep mine with red and green. There are orcs facing me. Usually I would say it's unlucky, but in Blizz rules, 2 fame will level you, so it doesn't matter that they are just fame 2. It would be inefficient to kill them with concentrated swiftness, and we do not have that in the opening hand anyway. So it might still be interesting to kill them just to level up. There's an Oasis. Oasis is always interesting. It's almost like a village, in the sense that you can hire units from a village and that you can heal for 3 influence. But you can also trade for crystals, so sell them for 2 influence or buy them for 4. And you can move away with a movement bonus of 2. So at night it's just net 1 movement to reach it, and at day, so even at day, it's possible to visit it with a net movement cost of 3. But more importantly, there's also Mage Tower, also in hillside, which is quite nice because in the spell offer we do have Fireball, and I do think we need to rack up some range attack to have a chance to kill these heads before they shred me. So a Fireball with up to 8 siege fire attack is quite nice. And with on level 9 actually there are 2 cold fire resistant heads, so I actually need physical range. Then there's a regular physical one, and there's one that's ice resistant. So in this sense, Fireball is quite a lucky pull in the offer, because the Snowstorm would not be as good, because it would not work against any head but 1. So that would be really bad. The other spells are Charm and Possess. Possess doesn't do anything for the dragon, because of course all the heads are arcane immune. And there are no additional tokens when you fight the dragon. So this is something that really differentiates the fight against the dragon from fight against other avatars, for example. The heads all have roughly armor 1. Maybe on low levels they sometimes have an armor of 2, but on the high levels it's all 1, because you have to defeat it once per level, of course. So that makes a combined health on level 12 of 48. On level 9 that we are playing now, it's 36. That's quite a lot, but it's exactly the same that the avatars have if you fight against avatars of level 12 or 9, or like roughly in the same ballpark. But the avatars do have accompanying tokens, so there's a huge difference here. But I think the difference here and the idea here is that the dragon will make your life much more miserable in the snowballing phase, because you have to pay resources or heal wounds, or both, when you're getting attacked by the dragon, so it will slow you down. But once you reach it, it's actually fair game, and then, in a sense, easier than the avatars. But then again, sometimes you defeat the avatars by just ignoring the entourage, so maybe that's not the biggest difference in the world. But it means that this tile is interesting because you can level, and with taking a tower we can get our first spell which is Fireball. We also have to keep in mind that the dragon will destroy a site after the first turn, which is the site furthest away from the portal. So the rules are written in a way that once you have revealed the lair, it will be the shortest, so it will always be closest to the dragon. And if you don't know where the lair is, instead you take the furthest away from the portal. And this here is the space which marks the distance of 3. So these lines here are all distance 3, which means that these 3 sites here currently are the sites furthest away. And the player with the lowest tactic number, and then so it doesn't matter of course, decides on a tie which gets destroyed. And I think there's no preference between marauding enemies, inhabited sites, or crystal mines. So these are the 3 things he will destroy, which does mean we can just decide to destroy the mine or the village. So I think that's not a big deal. But in the third turn, the dragon will attack me. And if I'm not in an inhabited site, I will have to face all the heads by myself. If I'm in an inhabited site, which is fortified, I can ignore 2 heads. If I'm in an inhabited site which is not fortified, I can just ignore 1 head. And I think ignoring at least 1 head is quite important, especially the freezing one, because it's hard to block and you don't want to get paralyzed. So this, in a sense, makes me lean towards trying to get the keep and be there after the third turn. It might be a play, but it's very close to the portal, of course. And I'm not sure it warrants taking 3 turns just to take the keep. Maybe leveling first, then taking the keep, and being there after the end of the third turn is a good idea. But then again, if I'm also hiring, 3 turns is actually not that much, because I need a full turn just to hire after taking the keep. And I need the right cards for this. So maybe going there straight. Maybe I do need, after seeing the defenders, 1 more turn for preparation, so I can only take it in the second turn. So there would only be 1 turn left to actually hire the units until the dragon then also destroys this side. If I'm using an inhabited side to help with defending heads, the dragon will destroy the side. I do not need to use this advantage, which then leaves the side. But again, then this puts the burden on me to defend against 4 attacks. The controller will never attack outside of when you assault the dragon. And again, just to point that out, if I'm not exploring anything and I'm taking more than 5 turns, the dragon will destroy all sides here, because it will be in the first turn, and in the 5th turn, and then if I'm not ending, if I'm playing a 6th, then the dragon will also destroy the mage tower, and I probably do not want that. So I should either explore, so I give him new targets that are further away from the portal to save the mage tower here, or make sure that I'm not taking that long. But then again, the dragon will destroy a site in its first turn anyway in the next round, so even if I cut it short in the first round, the dragon will destroy the mage tower in the first or after the first turn of the second round anyway. So I do think this means that exploring is probably not a bad idea, which means that putting it all together, I think there are 2 main options here. One would be to level and take the keep, then take shelter on the keep for the attack of the dragon, and then try to explore before ending the day, maybe even scout the defenders, and then in the second round take the tower quite early to get to the fireball spell. The other round is just to ignore the keep and try to get to the tower much quicker. Maybe leveling with the token still, but making a stop at the deep mine, stocking up on some crystals and just making my way to the tower. But then I would have to take the attacks of the dragon by myself, or I spend the movement to visit the oasis at night to at least have an inhabited side sheltering me, which is not fortified, but again it would be 1 less head that I need to deal with. As for the other units, the 2 magic familiars, I'm not sure they are interesting to me in this round, because there are no monasteries and there are no glades, so it all comes down to the tower as well. And the tower is quite far away, and it will probably be destroyed anyway. The advanced actions show pure magic, which might be nice for Krang, because we do have Savage Harvesting. That's always a good way on how to get to mana, so you can actually use something like pure magic. And then it's a lot of firepower or influence or movement, whatever you need. The Blood Ritual, of course, is also awesome, because it gives you all the mana that you ever wanted, but you do need some wound management. And it has the Song of Wind. And movement skills might not be the worst in a scenario like this, to also be more agile and be quicker with revealing the lair. But Song of Wind in particular does not give much movement by itself. It does reduce the cost of like a fair amount of terrain types by 1 or 2, Plains, Desert and Wastelands to be precise. And this is actually something that could be interesting, and this is Wasteland. So if I'm leveling here, Song of Wind might be something that actually allows me to do this play where I shelter in the oasis and then take the tower. But I'm not sure it's worth picking up over Blood Ritual or Pure Magic. And to point it out, the dummy is Tovak with 2 blue crystals, so this is an argument to not give the dummy Pure Magic. But if I'm not getting 2 level ups, which is quite unlikely, we will not see the other cards, so Blood Ritual will then be gone. As for the opening hand, we do have a Swiftness, which by itself unfortunately is not enough to kill the marauding orcs here. We do have a Crystallize and a Savage Harvesting, so 2 cards that gives us crystals, more movement and a healing card, Tranquility, which at that point is not that useful. Maybe after the 3rd turn when we got attacked that would be useful, but not in the 1st, 2nd and 3rd, because we are being attacked after the 3rd. So I'm not that fond of the opening hand because I do not see a good opening turn. There are no other sources for damage, so we can't really kill them unless we are powering this, which costs some mana, very inefficient, and then play another card sideways. We do have a gold mana, of course, so we could do that. So we could play a March, for example, play the Tranquility sideways, power the Swiftness, and just level up. But is that worth it? Another option, of course, is to use Savage Harvesting. Maybe power that with the gold die, and then move several spaces and discard a card with every move just to gain crystals. And then we can discard Tranquility. We maybe even can discard Crystallize, because Crystallize is a mana-hungry card, so if every turn we use our source die for whatever we are doing, for movement, fighting and so on, there is often not the time to actually play Crystallize. So we can use it for its intended purpose just with Savage Harvesting, which means that we can toss these 2 cards, for example. But where would we actually move? Because there's no way, if we are moving towards the keep, that we can also attack it. Which does mean if we are moving twice, if we then attack the keep backtrack, which is not a good idea, we could use Savage Harvesting just to get 1 crystal. So we don't need the mana from the source, so we can still make the plan with the Swiftness and the sideways card. That could mean Savage Harvesting, go to the plains, provoke the Marauding Orcs, get a crystal, power the Swiftness, play 1 card sideways, probably hold on to the movement card. The problem I have with this is that this is somewhat of a dead end, because we are investing movement to move to the orcs, but then we are right beside a desert space, which is 5 movement a day. And if we then move to the forest, I think I'd rather spend 1 movement point now, because otherwise we are paying 5 movement to get there instead of just 3. And what about the keep? As always, knowledge is key, so I would really like to see the defenders. So is there any way to scout the defenders on the way to leveling up? Well, we could move here and there, that's 5 movement, it's also 2 movements, so we could get 2 crystals. But again, we would need another movement point. And again, it will be really inefficient to move there, then move to level up, then move there back again. So, which does mean if I'm going for the keep, I'd rather almost commit by scouting. And if it's really horrible, we can just continue and just move on. But if not, if we are wanting to take this, what are we doing? Because we can't take it in the same turn because we don't have the firepower. So we will need to prepare. Which would mean playing a turn where we are not moving here because it would be inefficient. Just moving here. We could get a crystal. Actually, we could get yet another crystal. That's actually quite interesting. That would be these cards. That's already 3 of my 5. That's fast enough. It gives me 2 crystals. Could even pick up a white, because this can only be green if I discard this. This can be whatever I want if I use the blue. So I could pick up a green and a white and have a movement card and Swiftness still open. So in this sense, I think Great Start would not help at all, because I would then have used the source die and I've played 3 cards that I can just replace. I think planning at that point would be quite interesting, because then we are drawing up to 6 cards, which we do need to get into the hills and defeat the defenders. I think planning is really interesting. Mana steal usually is just a good idea if you already know what to do. As usual, Urban and the right moment are not on my radar. And rethink could be good to just get rid of like the cards that I maybe want to see later. Like Tranquility can be good later after the dragon has attacked me. But with any luck, we can block the physical attacks just with Rage and be in the keep to ignore the other 2, so maybe you're not even getting wounds. But maybe that's just wishful thinking, let's see. Also, if we can hire the Guardian Golems, they might be really awesome, because they can absorb an attack and block, so maybe the Guardian Golems by themselves can even deal with 2 heads. So I do like going for the keep more and more, which does mean if I'm going for the keep right away, I'm not leveling before taking the keep. But I'm not sure that's a big deal. This might not be the worst idea, because I do think we need the speed. If I'm not taking it now, the 3rd turn is getting closer and closer. So if I'm taking this time to prepare, then with planning I have 6 cards, then I do need to take the keep to have a chance to hire. If I'm not hiring, I just need to move on quite quickly. I think we could hire the Guardian Golems in Mage Tower, but I'm not sure it's possible in the first round to also reach the Mage Tower, conquer this and hire there. But it all depends on the order of the draw of the cards, I think, because I need to draw good combat to take it and then good influence to get the Guardian Golems. The unfortunate part is that with taking the keep, we will lose the +1. So the Guardian Golems really cost 7 influence, that's a lot. But we have not seen any of our influence cards or improvisation, so I think with a little bit of luck, we might be able to reach that. So currently I'm tending towards planning as a tactic, playing these 3 cards, triggering planning, drawing up to 6, being here then, and then we can decide with knowing the defenders and what we draw and how to proceed. So is there any alternative to this that I'm overlooking? Rethink might give me the concentrate swiftness to just kill them. So we could move to the forest and kill them at range. Not killing them at range is far too inefficient. Where we could block them, so to speak, with just tranquility, but we would need a mana, and a card in a mana is the same as 2 cards. So in a sense, doing this is not more efficient than just playing 2 cards sideways. But I do think with my plan to take the keep in hills and then try to hire, having 6 cards in hand is a really good idea. So this sounds far too tempting to not try, but it will depend on defenders, of course. I think I just want to try this plan that we already laid out, to go with planning and go towards the keep and see what happens. It will probably mean that the dummy goes before me, but to be quite honest, I'm not sure this is important in this kind of scenario, because 5 turns I will have anyway, and at that point I really have to take care to announce the end of round, so the dragon is not just destroying everything that I could use to level up. So let's try that. We are going with planning, because we have a first turn that plays 3 cards, leaves 2, that's perfect to have planning kick in, and we'll have a higher hand limit to maybe take the keep. Let's see if the dummy goes before us or not, but it's probably not that relevant, since the dragon will start destroying sites in the 5th or after the 5th, and then every turn after. So the dummy goes with Rethink, which doesn't mean we have Tovak, the dummy, then Krang, and then the Apocalypse Dragon as a round order. So we start with the first turn of the dummy, and the first 3 cards are red, white, and green. So we hit a card, the dummy has no crystal off, so a short turn. Then it's our turn, and the idea was to play the Savage Harvesting, discarding Tranquility, which would give us a green crystal, and then play the Crystallize with the blue source die, so we can pick up whatever we like. We still have red in the source and a gold die, and we just got a green crystal, so I think it's either blue or white. And since we do have a swiftness, maybe a mana draw coming up with a black die in the source, I think I will pick up a white, which if nothing else would also allow us to power a promise later to maybe hire the golems. Green, if we would not get any, would be really important to power concentration if we pick that up, but it's pretty much our first turn. So these cards are discarded. We reroll the blue die. Funnily enough, it stays blue, so I'm feeling quite happy with my crystal choice. And since planning kicks in, we are drawing up to 6 cards. So let's see what we get. The concentration is here, nice. It's not that important for a 45 side, of course. A rage, that's really welcome if you want to fight. Another swiftness, not sure if this is good or not. Maybe we use it for movement. And a promise, that's a little bit early. But if you don't need it for taking the keep, that would be awesome to have for hiring the golems afterwards. And of course, Krang stepped through the portal and we used Savage Harvesting to approach the keep. I totally forgot that. But it was the purpose of playing Savage Harvesting. And without powering it, we could then discard just 1 card to gain a crystal, but it was enough. And we also revealed the defenders, that's actually quite important. And I think that's very lucky. These are crossbowmen, so it's hard to block, but easy to kill. Maybe it's not that lucky then after all, because we would need to deal with the wounds. But that would be our first turn, and now the dragon takes his first turn. And just to show this, in solo, it destroys a site in the first turn, nothing in the second, attacks me in the third, nothing in the fourth, and then in the 5th onward, it will destroy another site. Since all these sites are in the same distance, I think I will destroy the white mine, because it's really out of position and we might need the village to heal. Which does mean the dragon flies over, destroys the mine. This is where these tokens come in to say that this is reduced to rubble and fire. And that's the first turn of the dragon. So we get to the second turn of the dummy. And the next 3 cards are blue. Blue, that's awesome. And white, another card here does not have a crystal off. But again, the dummy I think is not the most important timer in this scenario where you have the dragon. This brings us to our second turn, and now we need to think about how to take this keep. Alright, so we are facing the crossbowmen, and I think it is lucky that they're easy to kill. So with the red source die and a rage, they would already be dead. But the swift attack is a problem, because we can't really block this. We would need block 8 for this, and there is no block except the rage, and it doesn't block on the powered version, of course, so this means that concentration does not help us at all, which in essence means we cannot block it. So we will get 4 damage, and with 2 armor that's 2 wounds. And 2 wounds are kind of a problem if we already played the Tranquility, because they will clog up our hand. But let's mark that this will be the outcome. So this will be the whole battle. We do need to move into the keep, which is where March comes in, and since we have already used the source die, and I do not want to use a crystal for this, we need to play a card sideways or use one of the swiftness. The promise we could use sideways to do this, but then the question is, what are we actually doing with this? But my thinking here is that this is more movement than a sideways promise. So playing this wastes move, and we do need a lot of move to get away. But what about the hiring? And this is where I think with 2 wounds we will not draw much, so it's unlikely to get to 7 influence. And this is why I'm eyeing pure magic. Because we will level, we are getting 3 fame, that's more than enough to level. So we can pick up pure magic, but we need to draw this. So if these are played, this is played, but we do get these 2 wounds, we will be at 5 cards, which with planning means that we will draw exactly 1 card, which is exactly the card that we are getting. So if we are playing any other card, it doesn't change the fact that we will not draw anything from the deck. And it's unlikely, even with a promise, to reach 7 fame, especially with 2 wounds. We would have to play all the rest sideways. Where we could play the concentration with the promise, that's 6. That's actually a good argument, because it's just 1 card sideways. On the other hand, if we pick up pure magic, we can power with the source die and use the white crystal to also reach 7 influence. So I think the decision is, do we pick up pure magic, then we can toss the promise, or do we use concentration promise next turn, which we know we have, use a swiftness now, so you'll only have 1 swiftness left. And then we can pick up another card, for example, a Song of Wind. And a song is not actually that bad if you have a corridor of planes that we can even reduce to 0 movement cost. We could even go to the village here, and then if we have more movement, then also reveal more tiles, which would safeguard the tower. That sounds like a nice idea, which would leave pure magic to the dummy, but it could mean that we can pick up blood ritual as well. I think that's also a good argument, because if we take pure magic away from the dummy, the refresh at the end of round will get rid of blood ritual. And then we would either give Song of Wind to the dummy, or I have to pick it up then. We still have 2 stamina in the deck, which is also good use for the blue die. I do like the idea more and more to just use this in the next turn, but it would mean that we are moving with this into the keep, and then this card we actually need to play sideways. The problem really is that, again, we know that these cards we will have because we are not playing them, and we will have 2 wounds, so we'll only draw 1 card, which is the card we pick. So if you're going to hire the Guardian Golems, and we are not picking pure magic for this, but Blood Ritual or Song of Wind, and at that point I think I'd rather take the Song of Wind to have a good 4th turn. We will not play the Song of Wind sideways, so these cards will all be gone just for hiring. But I'm not sure this is actually a problem. Because looking at the map, the question is, what do I do with ranged attack? And the answer is not that much, unless I'm revealing something that really leans into ranged attack. The plan, of course, is to take this keep higher, block the dragon, using the Guardian Golems, and by having the keep being destroyed, I think I'm getting out of this without any wounds. And then we need to move on, and actually moving here is probably not the worst idea to heal this, which is another 6 influence. Again, we will not have a bonus because we assault the keep. Yeah, after hiring, we need to move and heal. And we might need to heal with improvisation. Ruthless Coercion could be interesting to ready the Guardian Golems, but I'm not sure to what end. We will see more cards after hiring because we will replace those, keeping the Song of Wind and the 2 wounds, so we'll have 3 more cards from the deck. And with any luck, there's more movement to explore and or influence to heal wounds in the village. We could also use the Song of Wind to try and reach the oasis and kill them on passing by, but I don't think that's efficient. It gives me a reputation back, but we won't have the range attack, and killing these orcs with 2 cards and a mana is hardly efficient. We can also try and plunder the village, to be honest, to power through our deck once we are moving there. And then I think we should make our way to the tower, not necessarily taking it in the first round, but we will have access then to Fireball in the second. So I think I talked my way out of pure magic. Reason being that we can achieve everything that we want with concentrated promise and swiftness. We won't use the swiftness then in round 1. And we have used the concentration to avoid pure magic. It does mean we are giving pure magic to the dummy, which has 2 crystal, which is bad, but it saves its blood ritual for later and allows us to pick up Song of Wind now. Without Song of Wind reaching the village is actually 6 movement, and exploring is another 2. And I think at that point Song of Wind really shines. I think we should try that and see what happens. So we can take the keep, of course. That's not that hard with these defenders. A rage on its own will defeat them, and we cannot really block the attack of 4. Since it's swift, it would be block 8. We don't have the cards for that. So the question is more about what the next turns bring, and we decided to play the march and the swiftness now for movement 4. That's enough to reach the keep. We would only need 3, but then we can assault the keep. We lose our reputation bonus, of course, for this. Then we need to defend against this. The attack we just need to take with 2 armor and an attack of 4, that's 2 wounds. So we get them into hand. And then we use a red source die to power rage for an attack of 4, which defeats the crossbowman. So we get fame 3, but a bonus fame from Blizz rules. So we are actually at fame 5 then. This is planning for the next turn, and we just played the rage now. We are marking the keep with our shield, but I fear the keep will not last. So we reroll the red die, comes up white, quite interesting. And we do still have planning, so with 5 cards in hand we will draw the card that we get from level up. So let's see what the level up brings. And a choice is between Shamanic Ritual. That's so nice. That's a skill that gives you once per round any mana that you want. And if as an action of the turn you're not doing anything else, you can actually flip that back and use it again. The other skill choice is the cooperative skill, that's mana enhancement. So it's also mana skill, but in contrast, of course, a little bit more complicated. When you use a mana of a basic color, you can put it into the center and gain a crystal. So once you pay it, you get a crystal, which means you use it and crystallize it, so it's a bonus mana. And then in the next turn, you can use this as a token of the color. So in essence, you're getting 2 more mana of a color that you already used. And I think in comparison, I'd rather use this because it's much more flexible. This gives you a lot more mana of what you already used, and usually with a starting deck where you have only 4 cards of any given color, using 3 mana of the same color is actually not that easy unless you're wanting to do an altar or something like this. So I think in comparison, this is just much more flexible. And for the card, we decided to go with Song of Wind, so we have a nice way to get away from the keep in our 4th turn, because in the 3rd we want to hire. So we are getting Song of Wind, we are getting Shamanic Ritual. This goes to the offer, let's make that here. And the Torvak skill is Night Sharpshooting. That could be interesting against the dragon. The replacement advanced action is Innate, which I find quite interesting for this scenario. It's a 3/5 influence card, so already good in itself. And it gives you influence for wounds, which might be nice if you are getting shredded by the dragon. Alright, but that's the level up. And since we do have 5 cards and planning, we will actually draw the Song of Wind, which is not that important, to be honest. In some other scenarios we discussed, drawing pure magic, for example, would have allowed us to use that to hire the Guardian Golems. But it was our 2nd turn. So now it's the dragon's 2nd turn, but in the 2nd turn he will not do anything, which is nice because we still want to use the keep once before it's getting destroyed. Which does mean we are in the 3rd turn now. Let's see what the dummy does. And the next 3 cards are red, blue, and blue. Okay, so we finally hit a card that he actually has crystals for, and he has 2. So there's another white and another red. And we are in our 3rd turn. And since the information was already open on planning, there's nothing that got revealed besides the color of the die that was rolled. We already know that we want to use the concentration promise combo, of course with the gold die, to get influence 6. And then we need to play a card sideways, and we are not playing the Song of Wind sideways, so we are playing this sideways for a 7th influence point, because we did lose our bonus from the assault of the keep, to then hire the Guardian Golems. I think they are far too valuable against the attacks of the dragon to not pick them up. And unfortunately that's already it, because we cannot manage the wounds in any other way. We do not want to rest here, because the dragon will now attack, which does mean we are playing these 3 cards. We've played concentration and bow swiftness for this round, so we will not do any combo there. Reroll the die, comes up as green, so we're just lacking red now. But we do have our ritual here to get us any mana we want. And again, we have more than 1 card, so even 3. So planning kicks in and we are drawing 3 cards, which is mana draw, stamina, but we really need something to block the dragon now. And another stamina. Okay, so lots of movement. But let's see, we are on the fortified side and we have our golem, so maybe that's even enough in the 1st round. So this was our 3rd turn, and now it's the dragon's 3rd turn, and in this turn he will actually attack me. And attacking means we are disregarding the control head, and all the other heads will attack with the level of the round number, which is round 1. So we have a brutal fire attack of 2. We do have a physical swift attack of 2. We have a physical poisonous attack of 2. And we have an ice attack of 2 that's actually freezing or paralyzing. But we are in the fortified side, we are in the keep here. So inhabited is the 1st point, that means they can help. And if it's fortified, they can actually help twice with 2 heads. And I do think we are done with the keep because we managed to hire before the end of the 3rd turn. So I think we will use the fortified side and just ignore 2 heads. Let's ignore the brutal fire and the freezing cold attack, which leaves a swift physical of 2 and a poisonous of 2. And the Guardian Golems can just shrug off one of the 2 attacks. And if we activate them, they have an attack or block of 2. So the block 2 will just block the other one, not the swift one. So we should block the poisonous attack and run the swift attack into the resistance of the golems. Which would mean by just activating and using them, we are not getting any additional wounds. So I think that's quite perfect, because we managed to get into the fortified side and hire the golems with the right timing. I think that went perfectly. Whenever the dragon attacks, you have the choice as in PvP to either fully attend, which does mean we would need to flip our round order token. So the next time we would have a turn, we just flip it back, but we lose the turn. But the upside is that you can then use your source die, your once per turn skills and all that nice stuff that you have once per turn. If you're not fully attending, you're not getting these once per turn things. But I do believe using units is not a one per turn thing because it's a one per round thing, so we can still do that. And we did not use a source die and we did not need our skill. Because for example, if we want to use fire block or ice block, we would need the mana. So we could use crystals, of course, but we could neither use the source nor the skill. So I don't think we need to fully attend. And that's just the third turn of the dragon. So the dragon is flying away again. And this means it's the fourth turn of the dummy. The dummy has 5 cards left. We have a reveal 3 blue. So if you're hitting the blue, it will exhaust this deck. Let's see. There's a red, there's a green, and there's another green, which he does not have a crystal of. So there should be 1 blue in here. Actually, I miscounted. Yes, it's because of cold toughness, so he already has 4 blue lying here. So it was actually safe. Which brings us to our 4th turn. But before we planned a turn, I actually forgot that the keep was destroyed by the dragon because we used it. So I'm not sure what happens with the shield. I'm leaving it here. Maybe it's relevant for scoring, I don't know yet. But the dragon reduced the keep to rubble as well. So we are now standing in the rubble and the keep is destroyed. So I do think the mission is clear. We need to leave the rubble and go forward and explore. So we save the tower because after the 5th turn, which we will probably take, seeing that the deck is not exhausted, the dragon will destroy another site that's as far away from the portal as possible. That's these 2, so we can destroy the village. But then after that, if not in the first round, but after the first turn of the second round, he will destroy this unless we are going onward. So I think in this sense we will play the Song of Wind and use the source die to power it. So we get movement 2 and the movement cost of plains, desert and wasteland is reduced by 2 to a minimum of 1. And we can even glide over lakes by paying a blue mana, which we could get with a mana draw. It does mean that this is all movement cost 0, so we can reach the village. And we do even have 2 movement points from Song of Wind to explore. So we should explore at least one of these tiles. The order we have to roll out, I'm just putting them here for optical reasons, as said in other videos. So I do think maybe going here and exploring this and then seeing what happens is a good idea. Maybe there's another option to heal, like a monastery. Then we might want to move there instead of the village. And I think we will use the staminas here, at least one of them, because we can pull a blue die as said if we are not using this lake ability here, which currently we don't need because there's no lake anyway. Then this will give us another 4 movement point to really explore more or get into position. And we could even power the other one with the ritual here. And if we are not taking any other actions for this turn, we can even get that back. I think the skill is really, really good if you're not interacting or fighting or something like this. Then it's just another mana for the turn. We could even get a white from this to power mana draw, put the black die to blue and just power them both. But I do think we need to know where to go and how the terrain looks like, because it can be really horrible. This is why I think powering Song of Wind, going here for 0 movement costs and then exploring this tile here is probably the first thing we want to do. And then we can think about how to go on with this. But we need to keep in mind that we have 2 wounds and we want to get rid of them. But maybe there's a glade, so let's see. So we do need to move on, and the Song of Wind is the perfect action for this because it means if powered with a source die, we have movement 2 and the movement cost of plains, deserts and wastelands is reduced by 2 to a minimum of 0, which does mean the plains here are actually movement cost 0. So we can move here, even here if we want to, just for free. And the 2 movement costs that we do have used to reveal. And depending on the outcome, we might want to power more staminas because we do have a lot of mana sources with mana draw and our ritual. And so this might actually be really nice to then explore even further or go even further. And now that I mentioned that this is all free, even movement to the village is free, I'm thinking about exploring this rather than the middle tile because we could go on here. No, I think with 3 tiles to be revealed, we cannot reveal them in a chain anyway, so one needs to be in the middle anyway. So let's explore this tile here, which is either of the 3. We have to roll that out. Let's make this tile blue and red, and this tile white and green. So this will be gold and black. There comes a blue, so it will be this tile here. So we are swapping them. And roll for orientation again, which is also blue, so it's 1 notch clockwise. And there is a monastery that could be good to heal. That's the regular orientation, rotated once. So actually there's also a glade. So 2 ways to heal, but unfortunately they are both on the other side of the tile. So we do have a blue mine facing us. There are Orc Summoners, 4 Fame unit that if we can kill in range would be really nice, but we are all out of range currently. There's a Monastery where we can learn Heroic Tale, and we do have a Magical Glade. So unfortunately the tile is not that easy to traverse. There would be a lake, so if we pay blue for the Song of Wind, we could reverse that. I think I would actually need to look up again if I can pay the blue mana later, if this is a lingering ability, or if I would have to decide it on using the ability. But we are not crossing lakes yet, and I'm not sure this is worthwhile anyway, because if we are crossing lakes we would provoke them, and we can't fight. Unfortunately, this makes this space quite inaccessible, and the summoner also blocks the plane space, so our reduction due to the Song of Wind does not help us with this tile at all. Which makes me think that we should probably just hover here, because it's free anyway, and at least reveal another tile and see if this changes anything terrain-wise. We are just losing 2 points then, and I think we want to either stop at the village anyway, which would then need no other movement points whatsoever, or we are going to the blue mine, for example, to be in position to get crystals and kill the orcs. Or maybe we are just powering through to the glade. That could also be an option. That would be movement 6, and we just need 2 for exploring, so this is actually a good option to do that. Unless there are rampaging enemies that could foil the plan, unless we are moving there first and then exploring. I actually do like going deeper into the map and not stopping at the village, because this would also mean that we need to get 6 influence to get rid of the wounds. If we are stopping at the glade, 1 will be healed right away, and we will have even more mana for the probably last turn then. Let's see how many cards we actually have left. So there's 4 with 1 healed wound. If we play all the other cards, that would actually mean that we draw exactly the 4 cards, because planning will not kick in. And if we hold on to another card, it would kick in, but we would still draw 4 cards. It would mean that we are getting quite far away from the tower. That's the only thing I don't like about this plan. But maybe we can loop around here via the monastery. But we also have to keep in mind that these 2 sides will be destroyed quite soon, because they are now the furthest away. On the other hand, the good thing is that this is the straight edge here. So actually the glade will be destroyed earlier. And if we explore here or here, there are actually spaces that are even further away than this tile is from the portal. So let's talk quickly about the turns. We are now 4th. We will play a 5th, which means 1 side will be destroyed. And I think after that we probably do want to announce the end of round with our 6th. So the dragon does not destroy yet another side, because if we are not doing this, then he will destroy a second, and at the end of the first turn of the second round, another one, until we get some respite again. So the question is really 2 or 3 sides. It depends on the map, of course, if this makes a huge difference. My point is, do we want to drag out this round in 2 more turns? So holding back a bit with the cards here, or not? I think it actually depends on the cards that are left, and we should know what 4 cards are still missing. I do think it's at least improvisation and Ruthless Coercion, and probably another rage, because we really have not seen any red cards yet. So yeah, there's just 1 rage, so 3 of the cards actually a rage, a Ruthless Coercion, and an improvisation. And we are still missing the determination. So it's actually 2 combat or block cards, rage and determination, improvisation, and then an influence card with Ruthless Coercion. So something to fight would actually be quite nice. And if we play everything, we won't have any movement unless we are playing improvisation for move. Another option that we could do is actually move to the Oasis, because this is now a 2 movement space for this turn because of the Song of Wind. This is Wasteland, so usually 4, but it's reduced to 2. And this is Desert, which is also reduced, usually 5 a day, now it's 3, so it's 5 movement. Unfortunately, we are provoking this, so we would have to move here to not provoke it. So that's 6 movement, which doesn't mean we could explore here and then end our turn at the Oasis. We would then see the defenders of the Mage Tower, and the Oasis is a place where we can actually heal wounds with influence. And we do know that the Ruthless Coercion comes up, and the nice thing about the Oasis is that moving away gives us 2 movement, which means at the next round, going into the tower with movement 3, we already have 2 movements, so any card siders will do. And maybe that's just the better option to secure the fireball. The fireball will also mean that we can then just use it right away to kill the summoners in the second round, which gives us a reputation, opens up the path to the monastery. The more I talk about this, the more I like this. It also means that we can get the countryside tile placed here, and once we have the tower, we can actually explore here, which then means we have all countryside tiles placed, and the core tiles can go here, and if need be, we can actually explore the layer then at the last tile here. Actually, that sounds quite awesome. We can even use a crystal to help healing. It's just 2 influence, but we could barter, sell a crystal to fill up the influence if Ruthless Coercion is not enough. Actually, we are not battling then anything. Actually, we could. but not in the same turn, because you cannot fight and interact in the same turn. I was about to say that this is still something that we could kill then if we are stopping at Oasis, but it's probably not worth it. So we have the improvisation. We have another card, like Rage or Determination is 3 influence. I can definitely power that. So it's almost enough already to heal us. I think I like that better than going for the Glade, because there's no way we get to the core tiles anyway. There's just too many tiles that we need to explore. And what's the benefit of sitting here if stuff gets destroyed there anyway? Let's just use the resource we already know we have, and the tower is just far too important. If we can learn another key spell just with influence next turn, after picking up the fireball, we might be on our way to get enough firepower to actually take on the dragon. But we do need 36, so there's a long way to go. And we cannot explore this, because once we end the Oasis, we can go here for free, but we could not go back, of course. The Oasis is a place you want to rest, because then you get this refreshed bonus of 2 movement if you start your turn there. This would give us mana, but again, mana is really not a problem, because this turn we will not do anything, we will not interact, we will not battle, which does mean we can just flip this back right away as our action. I do like this, because this means that the tower is somewhat safe. Actually, not somewhat, it is really safe. And we will know the defenders, then we can start with the tower right away in the first night. We will get a fireball, kill this, get another 4 fame. So we are really set up for leveling and getting our key spells. Let's do that. So there are some options on how to proceed. The Glade would be interesting to heal. We cannot reach this. This is nothing we can fight off. The remaining cards we have in the deck are a Rage, a Determination, so 2 fighting cards, an Improvisation, it can be anything, of course, and a Ruthless Coercion that could ready the golems, but to what end? So we'd rather go to the Oasis to get in a position for the tower, see the defenders, use the Oasis to heal, because it's also possible, because we do know we get Improvisation for influence. Which does mean for now we are using Song of Wind to move into the village for free. And what we then do is we are flipping the Shamanistic Ritual for white token, so we can power the mana draw. So let's put that here. And then we are pulling the black die from the mana source and turn it to blue. This gives us 2 blue tokens that we then use to power both stamina. So we now have another movement 8 at our disposal, which is enough to explore another tile. And after that, we actually plan to move here for 0, 3, and 3, because this is reduced from 5 to 3 from the Song of Wind. So we are not provoking anything, we'll end in the Oasis. But we want to get the exploration done and scout one of these 2 tiles. So let's say this is a light tile, so gold, white, and green. And this is then black, red, and blue. It comes up as black, so this is actually a tile we do explore. Let's roll for orientation. It's red, so 2 clicks counterclockwise. So this is the regular orientation, and it's 1 and 2. So funnily enough, we are facing an Oasis. And besides the keep, there is the other deep mine, which is blue and white. There's an Oasis facing us and a Ziggurat. But this doesn't change anything. It's nice that there is a site that's really far from the portal that's preventing these things from being destroyed. And the next sites actually would be this line here, because the monastery is the straight way from the portal, so all these are in the same distance. So this is the next distance, and then this is this. So from the destruction point of view, it's now the keep, and then any of the 3 where we can decide. So this is nice. The Oasis is not really tempting, because we really want to pick up spells. So this is why we stick with the original plan. We did now pay 2 of the 8 movement to explore, and we still have 6 left. So this is 0 movement, that's 3 for the hills, and 3 for the desert at day because of the reduction from the Song of Wind. Which does mean we are revealing the defenders. We actually reveal them when we are here, so we can still decide to move somewhere else. We have 3 movement points left then. And these are actually ice mages, so 5 ice attack and an armor of 6, which is ice resistant. Probably not the worst token, actually quite a good one. And we do want to visit the Oasis, of course, because we do want to heal, and there's nothing else to move to that makes any sense. Because without the Song of Wind, the Oasis will be movement 5, and it's nothing we want to pay at day. So these tokens were produced from mana draw. This was from Shamanic Ritual, and since we are not interacting and we are not fighting, we are spending our action of the day to actually flip this back. So this was set blue, this was used and will be rerolled now, and all these cards we have played. The die actually comes up gold, so mana is really not a problem currently. And since we did not went with the plan to go to the Glade, we are not healing a wound, but we do still have 2 cards, so planning still kicks in, which does mean we see the rest of our deck, which is exactly 4 cards. So there's the improvisation, there's the determination, there's the ruthless coercion and the rage. But it's our 4th turn. The dragon does not do anything after the 4th turn, which brings us to the 5th of the dummy. He does have only 2 cards, so he is now out of cards, which brings us to our 5th turn. And the dragon will then destroy a site. This is nothing we can prevent unless we are announcing the end of round, which would be quite stupid, to be honest. But then we should not play another turn. The dummy would then announce the end of round, so we could play another turn, but we should not because it's just another site that's getting destroyed, and I don't think dragging this out to 2 turns does it any good. But now that I talk about it, maybe we should briefly think about if this is actually true. Because we could try to heal the wounds and then still kill the orcs, for example, with another turn. The only difference would be, since the dummy announces end of round, that the dragon will destroy another site. But we do have enough sites actually. Maybe 2 turns is actually more beneficial to us, so we have to plan that now. So the ruthless coercion is actually enough to heal us fully. So we could hold on to all these cards here. One of the attacks of the orc can actually just be absorbed by the guardian golems, because they are physical resistant. Because one of the problems really looking at the Fame board is that we defeated one keep enemy, so the crossbowman, and we didn't do anything else, so we are really lagging behind with leveling. This will not let us level, but at least it's 2 more Fame. Or is there even a way to get rid of the mages? Yeah, we don't have any movement, only with improvisation. That's already 2 cards, so this healing, this would move us. If we could ready them, that would be 2 attack. Actually, this could move us, so if we power this and get them ready, that would be 6 attack. It would be 3 more wounds, that's the problem. I think it's asking too much, but this one might be in the cards, because this will just kill it. The golems will block 1 attack, so we can just play the determination, for example, to block the other. And that's pretty much it then, so it would even leave this. But unfortunately, if we try to prevent reputation loss with improvisation, it's only 5 influence. And we don't have the bonus yet. That's a good point, because we could do, with the 5th turn, destroy this, get the bonus, and then we are avoiding reputation loss by playing the improvisation, not the ruthless coercion. Because this is then 6, which is enough to heal both wounds, which does mean killing the enemy now. And the mana is not a problem because we have a gold and a ritual. We can't unflip this if we are interacting and or fighting in any order in the 2 turns. But we can use it because it will refresh at the end of round. And we have this. So this is 2 red basically. That's exactly what we need. We need to power this, block 1 attack, block the other attack. Then after that, do the interaction. So the main question is it worthwhile to pick up 2 Fame and a reputation and then have the dragon destroy 1 more site? And I'm leaning towards yes. Let's just try that. So we went through the options on what to do with the last and 5th turn, and actually it might make sense to do another 6th turn and have the dragon destroy another site, because we have revealed enough sites, so it should be somewhat safe. If you're not planning to visit any of this, then this can all be destroyed because it's the farthest away from the portal. And with 2 turns we can actually at least kill these rampaging enemies. It's just 2 Fame, but also reputation, and it might actually be a good thing to pick that up. So what we are doing with the 5th turn is we are actually provoking this token here. It has an annoying attack because it's attacking twice, but 1 attack can actually be absorbed by the golems. They are really nice if you have golems like this. So they have physical resistance, so they can just negate 1. And the other we can block with determination easily, so we're not getting any wounds. And then if we just use a rage with the gold die from the source, then they are actually dead. Which does mean we get 2 Fame. We are not leveling, but it still helps us in progressing, because not leveling twice in the first round is not the best outcome, to be honest. But it makes it a little bit better, but we do also get a reputation. So we are back at +1. And that's really it for the 5th turn. So these 2 cards are then discarded. Die comes up green. It's not a problem because we do have our wildcard mana here. We are of course not drawing anything because the deck is empty. The dragon will then destroy a site, and I think it's clear that the keep is the furthest away. So this is just taken care of. Let's reveal and discard this, or do we just put it back to the stack? There's enough in the stack. Let's reveal that. So there were golems. Keep is destroyed. So we mark this with one of the tokens that it's reduced to rubble. In the 6th turn, the dummy will now announce the end of round because his deck is empty. So we mark this by cleaning this up. So now we have a 6th turn. And the nice thing is that with the shamanistic ritual, we do have a red. So we can power improvisation. That's 5 influence. And we do not need ruthless coercion then, so we can avoid the reputation penalty. And with the reputation bonus, we now have influence 6. And influence 6 in races is 2 healing, so we can actually heal the 2 wounds. So that's that. We have played everything. And the dragon, unfortunately, in his 6th turn will again destroy a site. So now he will destroy a site every turn we take. But since we then announce the end of round, or actually since the end of round was already announced, the dragon might not even destroy a site because the dummy did announce the end of round. That's quite interesting, because this means that my 6 turn is actually free. Yes, and of course that's true. The dummy is the replacement for other players, and it's irrelevant if the dummy announced the end of round or I do. It's announced, so after the announcement of the end of round by a Tovak, I get a turn, but the dragon does not. It's specific in the rules that once the end of round was announced, the dragon does not get any further turns. So he's actually not destroying another site, which is perfect, which does mean it was not actually something to consider. And I have healed now, so we can take the tower as the first action of the second round of the first night. So I'm really happy how this went. Again, we revitalize in the Oasis, so if we start our turn here, we gain movement 2. That's quite important, because it means that moving to an Oasis will give you some of the movement back, which is a really nice idea. And we could actually use crystals for influence, or influence for crystals, but we did not want to do that. We have 2, that should be enough. We have our shamanistic ritual, so that has to be okay. All right, so that's the first day. I think overall that went quite nicely, especially since I did not get any wounds from the dragon because of the timing. Since I got to the keep in the second turn, could hire in the third. So I have these nice golems, which are really MVPs here. They have done a lot of work already against the dragon and now. But I have only leveled once, picked up the Song of Wind, picked up a unit. I am almost leveling again. I've explored a lot, that's true. So this is really good. But I'm in a perfect position to now take the tower, take the fireball, kill the summoners, explore the last countryside tile, hopefully get to this monastery. Let's see what we can learn there, and we can always burn it down before the dragon does. And then we are already in the core tiles, maybe even at the lair. But then we really need to think about how do we get enough attack to actually kill the dragon. Maybe we do it in 2 goes, let's see. 36 range attack seems a bit out of reach, but let's see what spells we get. So to clean up, we are readying the golems and flipping the shamanistic ritual. The deck again does not have any additions besides the Song of Wind, so nothing to talk about. Planning and Rethink are now burned. We somewhat consciously gave pure magic to the dummy, so we have still Blood Ritual at our disposal, and we could use the Song of Wind. I think it was quite a good pickup, but this means he now has a 5th card of the crystal colorway he has 2 from. But let's shuffle his deck, and we give him a white crystal from Charm. That should be enough for the dummy deck. We are definitely not tossing Fireball, because we really want that. But there's an argument to be had to get rid of the Blood Ritual. The idea being that we did pick up a skill that gives us any mana that we want, so we will have 1 black mana at least from here. We still have mana draw, of course. So maybe Blood Ritual is actually something I do not want to pick up. And if I leave it now and not picking it up, it will be a color that the dummy actually has as a crystal. And if we just get rid of it now, Init will be in the last position. If I'm not picking that up, then he will get a green card. Which means that we would see more advanced actions and maybe some that actually helps us with range attack. But I somehow hope that with spells we actually get enough range attack. So maybe something refreshes here now that is also range attack, so we can just learn it in the tower with influence. And it's not the worst card for the dummy to pick up. Green is, of course, the best, but white and red are okay. Blue is really what we do not want to give him. But it's a hard decision. Blood Ritual is still a lot of mana, but I'm playing Krang and I have the Ritual. I think this is the only thing that's holding me back. Otherwise, I would definitely leave the card. But do I want to pick up In Need? If I do, I'm not sure what the dummy will get, because I have no idea what the colors will be. But do I pick up an influence card? I think a healing card at that point would just be better. Especially if I'm picking up Blood Ritual, I definitely want some way of healing. But we will see what the unit offer brings. If I go for a second night or 4th round all-out assault to the dragon, I will need more than 1 black mana if I get the right spells. And at that point, Blood Ritual will just be the MVP. So overall, I do think I do not want to risk it, just leave it. Let's see what the other refreshment card is and what I pick up with the next level. So Blood Ritual could be dropped, since we do have a lot of mana with Krang and Shamanistic Ritual already. But I don't want to risk it, so we leave this as well. And the advanced action of our refreshes with Swift Bolt, that's actually something that I definitely want to pick up, because it's just range attack 4 and we do need physical for 2 of the heads. So with concentration it would already be 6. It's not killing a head, but at least it's something. And the spell of her refreshes with Whirlwind, which is not helpful at all, because both abilities do not work against arcane immune enemies. So I'd rather want to see some spells with range attack. But that's the offers. Let's get rid of the unit offer and see what we can learn in the monastery. So for the unit offer, we do have Crossbowmen, very nice. Range attack, it's not much, but at least something. Scouts, that's also ranged, or even siege. Foresters, they are good in soaking damage actually, and also movement, some block. And Shock Troops, which is also range attack and can improve other attacks. And the advanced action of in the monastery is Stout Resolve. It's not range attack, but a good card, and at least it helps with the wounds I'm getting. The source of the first knight shows a green, blue, red and a black die. So we just shuffle our deck and then we are ready to go. So our opening hand is just in quotes 5 cards because we of course did not level enough yet and we don't have planning. So Ruthless Coercion, Stamina, Swiftness, March and Rage. So not a lot of firepower, although Rage and the Golem would be enough to kill the mages. So maybe that has to do. Let's put the dragon here. And this brings us to tactic selection. We do have one undeniable problem coming out of round 1, and it is that we are missing 1 fame exactly to level again, to have a second command slot. And this is a problem now, because we are sitting on an Oasis, and in the first turn, with the hand we have with Ruthless Coercion, we could actually hire either the Crossbowmen or the Scouts or even the Foresters. But we do not have the second slot yet, so we are missing exactly the fame, the 1 fame that makes this possible. The other problem with this is that we are still sitting at armor 2, so if we are now taking the tower with an attack of 5, we will get 3 wounds, so that's bad. And since there is no way to get a single fame now and level up, the only option is really to move forward. The Oasis gives us movement 2, and we only need 3 for the tower, so 1 card sideways will do, or any card basically. We can power the Rage and use the Guardian Golems to kill the mage, but again we will get 3 wounds that we cannot get rid of right away. And to kill the mage we do need the Rage and the Guardian Golems to come up with 6 attack or 2 other cards sideways again, or power the Swiftness. We do have a Source Die and the Shamanistic Ritual to get a second mana, but it's tempting to think about using the Guardian Golems to block the mage. We can come up with a Fire block 4 with a red mana, but then again the attack is 5, so we would need another 2 block, because we cannot come up with another fire block. It would be an efficient block, so another block 2, which could be the Rage, but then we are completely out of damage, because the Golems are already used, Rage is already used, so that leaves the Swiftness, which also costs some mana, and it's just 3 of the 6 damage we need. Granted, we do have 3 other cards, but 1 we need for movement, so even if we play the other 2 cards sideways, it will not be enough. Which in a sense does mean that with preparation we can do it probably, because this gives us an extra card, but playing with 3 mana when you have Source Die and Shamanistic Ritual is already 1 mana too much, so I think I was already thinking about using preparation to pull mana draw, because the white crystal can then give us 2 red. We would then still have the Source open and the Shamanistic Ritual to power the Swiftness, for example, and something else. But we could do without, so we could pull the red Source Die for Rage, use the Shamanistic Ritual for the Guardian Golems, and power the Swiftness with a crystal. But it would be so much easier to just hire and then take the tower in the second turn. I don't think Mana Surge does a lot for us currently, because we do have a somewhat good source, some crystals and a good skill. Sparring Power is not what we want to take in the first night. Long Night doesn't help us now, which pretty much leaves Mid and Meditation to use right away and swap out some cards. Maybe the movement cards and the Ruthless Coercion, it's already 3 cards. Where we could hope for some more combat cards to aid in coming up to damage and or blocking. Because moving we can with just any card, since we are only lacking 1 point. And then there's preparation, of course. But what would we actually pull? We could also just grab the Tranquility and just not bother with blocking. That means a Rage and the Guardian Golems is actually enough. We get 3 wounds, but we can heal 2 with Tranquility. That's an odd card to pull with preparation, to be sure. But maybe that's just the play that leaves 1 wound. We can get the red for Rage or the green for Tranquility from Shamanistic Ritual, which leaves the other color in the source, so we can use that next turn. For example, to use Ruthless Coercion to hire a unit in a tower, which could be the Scouts only, and maybe ready the Golems, or even learn another spell. The follow-up, of course, is Fireball to the Summoners, which we should probably do before interacting in a tower, because it brings us back to +1. But no matter what, we need the red, so we probably would then use the green for Tranquility and a Shamanistic Ritual for the red, so we have red in the source. We do also have a green crystal, which could be an option to use instead of the Ritual, because currently I don't see a turn where we are not using an action to assault, to provoke an enemy and fight, or to interact with the tower, to flip that back. But usually it's better to use a skill instead of a crystal. Yeah, so the fact that we are not level 3 yet means that we are really out of options and have to go forward. And I do think preparation is the only choice that really fixes the issue. Which does mean we can just look through the deck if there's something else that would be even better. But I don't think so, because coming up with 6 damage includes the Guardian Golems already. At that point it's really not a good idea to try it and block this. Which does mean it's, I guess, the first time in my Mage Knight career that I'm pulling Tranquility in preparation in the first night. But why not? So let's do that. So if the current situation is clear that we need to take the tower, We unfortunately did not level, so we can't hire and spend some preparation turning Oasis. It's really pointless. And blocking the Ice Mages with the Guardian Golems is not a good idea because we lose the damage that we need to kill them. We need more mana and they are not even blocking them by themselves. So in this sense, we are not even trying that. We are choosing preparation as our tactic. This is also why I have the deck in hand already and we are pulling the Tranquility. That might be an odd choice, but that's what we are going for. So we shuffle the deck. That should be enough. And then we see what the dummy picks. And the dummy goes for Midnight Meditation. I'm okay with that. It does, however, mean that the dummy goes first. So we still have Tovak, Krang, and then the Apocalypse Dragon. And we start with the first turn, where the dummy plays blue, blue, and green. That's, I think, the perfect opening. Slow turn, 2 blue cards are re-eliminated. We then get to our first turn, and the idea is to assault a tower. We started the Oasis, so we have movement 2. The Mage Tower is in health, so we need 1 more movement point, which does mean that we have to sacrifice any 1 card. It really doesn't matter. Rage we need for fighting. Tranquility for healing, that's why we pulled it. Which does leave 2 movement cards, Swiftness and Ruthless Coercion. This I want to hold on to as well, to interact and already my units. And I think I want to hold on to the Swiftness. Maybe we can use that in the Monastery, for example. Which means 1 of the 2 movement cards. We are about to use a green, so I'm leaving the blue because there's blue in the source. So we're using March to assault. We do lose our reputation bonus for this, unfortunately. The Ice Mages then attack us with an attack of 5. We are taking 3 wounds ourselves. Again, unfortunately, because we did not level up yet. We are then using the Golems for 2 attack. And we are using the Shamanistic Ritual to produce a red token to power the Rage. That's an attack of 6, which does kill the mages. Which does mean we have conquered the tower. We had 5 fame, which means that we would be at 12, but Blizzard rules mean we are at 13. 2 fame away from leveling again, which we will do with the Orcs quite soon. After the battle, that's the point of Tranquility, we use the green source die to heal 2 of the wounds. That's just easier than trying to block this. Unfortunately, we still have 1 in hand, but yeah, it's not perfect, but it has to do. And that's really our first turn. So the token goes away. All these cards are played. Let's make room for the discard pile. And we still have 4 cards in hand. Let's see what the die comes up. Also black, unfortunately. But we now have an arm of 3 and a second command slot, which is the important part. This brings us to the combat rewards, which would have been before the level up, but in this case it doesn't matter, of course. And of course we will take the Fireball. It's a range attack, it's fire damage, which is nice with the resistances of the dragon heads, and we can just kill the summoners next turn, so this is why we picked that. And of course we will just draw it, because we will draw up 2 and limit of 5. The replacement spell in the offer is Underground Travel or Attack. It is a good movement skill, but in a scenario without fortification it's not that important. So that's our first turn, which brings us to the Apocalypse Dragon. And in the first turn he will destroy a site, which is the furthest away from the portal, which as said is either the mine, the cigarette, or the glade. And I do think the mine is too far out of position anyway. I will not visit that, so let's destroy the mine. So we can move the dragon here, and that's his first turn, which brings us to the second. And the dummy plays blue, white, and red. So we are hitting a crystal, which is another white card. Now for our second turn, I think we will kill the orcs before we interact. I think that's the idea here. Looking at the spell offer, I'm not sure I want to learn Underground Travel. I think that's too expensive currently. Whirlwind does not work well against the dragon. Chill as well. So the spell offer is kind of dry currently. So I think we are better off just recruiting. And if you want to ready the Guardian Golems, we would have to pay 4 influence. The scouts, which are the only unit that we can hire, are 4, which in total is already 8. Ruthless Coercion gives us 6. If we kill the orcs now, we will be at +1, which then Ruthless Coercion will undo, of course. So we would still just be at 7 and need 1 more point to hire and ready the golems. And I think it's worthwhile readying them, even though we do not have a concrete target for them at all. So in this turn we probably just used the Fireball with the red source die. We made sure that we have a red left. But we could think about playing either the Stamina or the Swiftness for movement 2 and explore the last countryside tile. And I think that's also an efficient use of our time. And maybe it does change what we are actually going for. We could even leave the tower and provoke the orcs just on the way out. If there's another side where we can hire more easily, because there's no specific reason to stay in the tower. It restricts our choices. And maybe there's a village where we can then hire the crossbowmen or the foresters. The crossbowmen are just range attack, even though it's just 2. We don't have into the heat or something like this. The foresters I like because of the armor and they are level 1, so they can soak up quite some damage and are easy to heal. Between them and me, we could already absorb 7 damage and would just need heal 2 to get rid of it. The problem is that I do not know if I want to move away, so if I'm using the stamina now, I cannot retroactively power it. And we do need the red source die, which could mean that we are not powering it at all, because we do only have white and green as crystals. Unless we are not killing them in this turn and just use the turn to flip back the Shamanistic Ritual. That could also be a play then. So we use the blue after all, are not casting Fireball. Use the movement to get somewhere completely different, which again would mean that if we want to do a concentrated swiftness in a monastery, for example, we would need to pull the second swiftness with concentration in the same turn. But I think I do like the option to use the swiftness for scouting and then either killing the summoner with the fireball or powering the stamina and just moving into this tile. I think this gives me the most options. And the monastery is at least 2 turns away, and the monastery, to be honest, would also be nice to learn Start Resolve. So what I'm saying is, if we are killing the summoners and move to the monastery, we will not burn it down right away, but we might even use Ruthless Coercion first to pick up Start Resolve and then burn it down. So I do think scouting with this and then deciding how to go on is the way to go. So in our second turn we will try to kill the summoners, but since there's the last unexplored countryside tile and we do have a movement phase before we kill this, we decide to use the swiftness, even though we could use it in the monastery. But this gives us the option to see what the tile is and then decide if you want to use the red or the blue source die to continue. So we're using the swiftness for movement 2, which reveals this tile. So there's no need to roll here, except for orientation, of course, which is gold, so it is not rotated at all from its default orientation. And it's the very eventful tile with a keep, mage tower and a dungeon and a mountain range. And since it's not rotated, it's actually sitting like this, which is insanely good, I think. Of course, all these sites are in wasteland. That's the downside of the tile, and it's really bad to navigate that tile. And the keep is really out of position. But I think the keep is the least interesting. The mage tower is also not that interesting because the spell offer is kind of dry when it comes to this scenario, because Chill and Whirlwind are both not really good against the dragon, underground travel and underground attack, as well as not the most pressing concern. But a dungeon, of course, is a different matter because this can give us an artifact. It's something that benefits from range attack. So this is a prime target besides the monastery, of course. And once we draw the Song of Wind, we can actually power that, and then it will be much easier to traverse the wasteland. And we can even maybe scout the first core tile, and maybe it's still there already. But what does it mean for our plans? Moving on, I think, is not the best idea because we would provoke the orcs and we are not going into a wasteland mage tower where we don't need the reward and don't know the defenders. I think that's a bad idea. And at least for one interaction, I would like to have the +1. So I think I will just kill the summoners now, which would be the fireball. We will then pick up a card from the offer and another skill and see where we go from there. We could even take in need, with the idea being that we do have a wound in hand, so it gives us a lot of influence. So we maybe do not even cast Ruthless Coercion. In need with the bonus would already be 8, but then again, the 8 was already useful with the reading ability of Ruthless Coercion, so that's pointless. So maybe we do not even interact in the tower, maybe we just move on. We do have blue in the source and the stamina, so after killing the orcs we can then move into the monastery, for example, and then use in need to heal the wound and maybe pick up Start Resolve. That would be a combined influence value of 8 as well. But do we pass on Blood Ritual? And what about a Swift Bowl? The Swift Bowl is probably the best thing to take, seeing that we are then at the monastery and right beside the dungeon. I think range attack will be very good in the short term. And range attack 4 for the dragon fight is really also a good idea. And if nothing else, it gives us the white crystals to power all the swiftness we have in the starting deck. So we can see what a skill is. We could even take the Night Sharpshooting. That's an interesting idea, but then we would need to pick up the Blood Ritual. We could then give in need to the dummy, which is green, which would be perfect. And the Swift Bolt we can probably pick up then in the second day, the latest. But we would not have the Swift Bolt to get the artifact from the monastery and or the dungeon. And we are just play the swiftness and we are about to play a fireball. Yeah, but I think it doesn't change what we are now doing in the second turn. We are casting the fireball, killing them, leveling, and then we'll see what the skill is. So there's no sense in going on because we can just kill the summoners now and we will be in a tower where we could interact, and provoking them by moving out is not a good idea because we will be stuck at planes and we would have to move again. So let's use the fireball, using the red source die for ranged fire attack 5. The summoners have no resistances and an armor 4, so they will just be dead. This gives us a reputation, so we are at +1 again, but more importantly for fame. So we are at 17, and again with Blizz rules we will be at 18. We are not using anything else, so these cards are discarded. It's a better part of our range attack in the deck. We reroll the die. Comes up green, it could be interesting. But now we proceed to the level up and see first what skill we get. And the choice is between Battle Frenzy, so that's the +2 attack skill, unfortunately not ranged. And if we flip this, we can even make it +4. And whenever we do a resting turn, we can actually flip that back. And the other skill choice is the Master of Chaos. I have to confess I never played that, as said in another video. When you get that, you roll a color and then you mark it with a shield. So once per turn, you can move it to the next position clockwise and either get 3 block, 1 move, 1 cold fire range attack, 2 influence, 2 attack, and in the leftmost position you can actually choose the bonus. And if you're not using it, you at any time before your next turn you can actually move it forward. So you don't need to use the bonus if it doesn't fit in. These bonuses are all in the ballpark of usual skills, but it's literally chaos, which means that you cannot rely on this. But then again, you can leave it at a point where you think you will soon need it and then make use of it. So I'm somewhat tempted to just take the Knight Sharpshooting. It's 2 range attack now after all, and in the final round it's again another 2, which means that if I get Concentrated Swiftness later and have Knight Sharpshooting, I will even have a range attack of 7 for the dungeon or the monastery. Or if I get the Swiftness by itself, it will already be 5. It would force me to take the Blood Ritual, but it might not be a bad decision anyway. We could even use it next turn. Unfortunately, we could not power it because we are lacking red. That's a slight problem. So the idea would have been to power it to get a crystal of any color that I want and 2 other mana, 1 for stamina to reach the monastery, 1 for Ruthless Coercion to get the influence to then heal the wound I already have and the wound that we get from Blood Ritual, which would even leave 3 influence, but it's not enough to do anything else, unfortunately. But then again, we can use the blue mana die from the source to move, so we don't need to power Blood Ritual. We would get a red crystal then, which is okay, I think, which is actually not that bad, and we will still have a mana to do anything else. The Master of Chaos will give me the odd movement, the influence, sometimes block, sometimes attack. It might be actually quite nice, but it can only be 1 range attack, and the Knight Sharpshooting is just 2 range attack at night, or in a dungeon of course, with night rules, 1 at the next day. Whereas the Battle Frenzy can be +4, that can be really good. 4 points is 2 cards or a card and a mana, and you can use it once per round or flip it back even. So I think it's either Swiftbolt and one of our skills, or it's the Blood Ritual with the Knight Sharpshooting. Because I do think I want range attack. So taking Blood Ritual or even a Need with our skills, I don't think I want to do that. In Need is really a strange pickup at that point because of the other options of Blood Ritual and Swiftbolt. And since we could give it to the dummy, so he's picking up a card he hasn't even a crystal for. But I don't like losing the reputation for Ruthless Coercion, that's the problem. We're still at a hand limit of 5, so whatever we pick up, we only draw 1 card from the deck. Which does mean we pretty much have to plan with what we have and what we get, and the 1 card from the deck will probably not change much. So I do think moving to the monastery and healing the wound we have is probably a good idea. But we could try to pick up Start Resolve. It's not range attack, but it's quite a flexible card, and we just rolled green in the source, which if we are not picking up in Need is currently quite pointless unless we are getting the Concentrated Swiftness. Healing a wound and picking up Start Resolve is 8 as said, which could be Ruthless Coercion, the bonus, and another cut sideways. But then again, only if it's powered, and if you want to reach the monastery, you need to power the stamina as well. We also need to keep in mind that after the 3rd turn, so after the next one, the dragon will actually attack me, so whatever we are in will probably be destroyed. So if we are moving to the monastery next turn, we cannot burn it down ourselves if we are using the site to defend, which could be a reason to stay at a tower. So make a 3rd turn with an interaction in a tower, and then move on. And the interaction in the tower could ready the golems, which would be beneficial for the dragon attack, and picking up the scouts. So we would keep the wound for 1 more turn. I think that's probably the better play, because we can then use the 4th and 5th turn of the first night to get to the monastery, without the risk of having it burned down by the dragon. We still have the promise and improvisation in the deck, so there will be some influence coming up, and I do think with the plan to move to the monastery to heal, we should probably just pick up Blood Ritual with the idea of healing the wound we get and the wound we have in hand. So moving and healing with this, giving a Need to the dummy and picking up Swiftbolt later, which allows us to pick up Knight Sharpshooting. But we are not planning to move away next turn. So next turn is just Ruthless Coercion, but we do not have red mana then, unless we are picking up the wound right away. It will be interesting to see what we draw, but I think that's the way, because we really need to ready the Guardian Golems and stay at the tower to defend against the dragon. We almost missed planning for that, but it's our 2nd turn already, so we are coming up to the 3rd. So I do think we cannot move on the next turn, and then it's somewhat decided. In Need doesn't help us then. We need the red mana to power this, so we are picking up Blood Ritual. So with the 2nd turn being almost over, and after the 3rd we will be attacked by the dragon, we better stay at the tower. We pick up Knight Sharpshooting, because it's 2 range attack now in the final round and 1 in the next round. And we are just picking a Blood Ritual because we do not have red and we really need to ready the golems to be ready for the dragon. Which does mean these 2 go to the offer. We can't pick them up ourselves anyway. And next time we can pick up the cooperative skill of Tovak, which is the Mana Overload. Which is also a mana skill, so you get a mana of any color except gold. And next turn, if you use a skill which uses that mana, you can add +4 to it. The advanced action offer refreshes with counter attack, quite interesting. But let's see level up. So we are drawing, which is of course the Blood Ritual first, and then a Rage. That's our second turn. The dragon doesn't do anything in its second turn, so we're up to the third. And the dummy plays red, red, and green, so another short turn. In this scenario, it might not even be good if the dummy is too slow, because it might be really nice if you get 6 turns and the dummy announces end of round after 5, so the dragon does not destroy another side in his 6th turn. But let's see how it works out. So that's the dummy third, and in our third turn, we are not leaving the tower, that's the whole point. And since we do not have red, but we really need to cast this powered, we will use the Blood Ritual, again, without red, because we don't have it. It gives us a red crystal. We unfortunately pick up another wound, but the idea would be to use the blue sorcerer next turn to get to the monastery and heal. Unless we have no influence card, then we are just resting instead. And with the other mana token we get, which can be any color, we are using Ruthless Coercion for influence 6, 7 due to the bonus. And the Rage Sideways makes it 8. So in this sense it's good that it's not one of the other cards you might need later. And with 8 influence we can use 4 to ready the golems and another 4 to pick up the scouts in the mage tower. So we have filled our second slot. This is discarded, the cards are used. And our hand is a bit clogged up, but we still draw 2 cards, which is a promise that's really nice, because it means that we can actually heal with influence and not just rest, and a crystallize. So that's our third turn, and the dragon will now attack us again. So we'll fly by, and we are in a fortified site, an inhabited site, that we can sacrifice to ignore 2 attacks of the heads. And since now it's around 2, we will have a brutal physical attack, so in a sense that's easier than on level 1. We'll have a brutal physical attack of 3, so no longer poison, but a larger attack. Both having the problem that if we are not blocking them, they will be doubled. Then there is a swift poisonous attack instead, which is harder to block. But I think that's the best attack for us with the golems, because we can just ignore it. You can just run it into the golem. Swiftness and poison doesn't matter at that point. And we do have a freezing attack that's physical 3. So easier to block than the level 1 if you don't have access to fire block. So as said, we will run this head with 2 physical attack, swift and poisonous into the golems, which have physical resistance. Poisonous and swiftness at that point is irrelevant. And then we are activating the guardian golems for block 2 to block this head, which has a physical brutal attack, but brutal is only relevant if you're not blocking it. And the other 2 heads we can ignore because we are in a site that we can sacrifice, which unfortunately means that this tower is destroyed. We leave the shield again because I'm not sure if we score for this later, and the tower will be reduced to rubble. And this means we are not fully attending. We have not used any skills. We have not used mana deck from the source or any such thing. We just used our units. And that's the third turn of the dragon, which brings us to the fourth of the dummy. At that point, the dummy has 7 cards in his deck, so there's no chance to exhaust it yet. Blue, green, and red, which is another card, which is white. So 3 cards left, so we will exhaust it anyway. It doesn't matter what crystals he has. Which does mean we have 3 turns. 3 turns means that he's exhausting his deck after this one, so we have another. This is then our 5th and the dragon's 5th. And then we will actually announce the end of round for us, which means we have another turn, a 6th one, but the dragon does not. So actually it's quite perfect. Alright, so we can plan our 4th turn. And with the tower being burnt down, there's really not much to do here, which I think means that we are now using the stamina as planned with the blue source die that we kept. We could also use the scouts, of course, but I do think they are better spent for something else. If there's a blue source die anyway. Actually, we could pick up a crystal and just use the unit instead. The unit will not help us in the monastery or the dungeon. And scouting probably we can do with other cards. So there is an argument to be had to not use this here, but use this here instead and use the scouts and the stamina for movement. And I think we have to use a white crystal anyway, otherwise we cannot heal them. We would have to rest. But I do think using the crystal to get rid of the wounds instead of just discarding them is just better. Then we will draw a fresh hand. Unfortunately, it's already our 4th turn. There's 8 cards in the deck, but we will draw 5 for the 5th turn and then have 3 replacements for the 6th. So this might actually come out perfectly. And I think that's just a better plan. It's using the scouts to get a crystal, and we will be able to explore the core tile no matter what, I think, because we will have movement cards coming up. I think we forgot the reputation penalty from Ruthless Coercion. We have to compensate for that because we took the tower, went down, we killed the orcs, went up, and then we used Ruthless Coercion, so we are down again. But we don't need it because in the monastery you can heal for 2. So 4 influence without a bonus is actually enough to heal them, but we will not be able to learn anything or pick anything up. So let's compensate for that and execute this turn. So before we play our first turn, we actually realized that Ruthless Coercion would have cost us a reputation, since we went down to 0 with the tower, went up with the orc, and now we are down again. And in the 4th turn, we will then use the scouts for movement 2. We could also reveal a space from 2 tiles away, but we don't want to. We are using the stamina, just unpowered. That's 4 movement. And with the 4 movement, we can move through planes to the monastery. This leaves the blue source die to power crystallize. And in the monastery, we use a white crystal for influence 4, and we don't have a bonus, but that's enough to heal the wounds, so we don't need to get rid of them by resting. So they're gone for good. I think that's much better. This will all be used, but we can select any crystal that we want. And we do have green in the source and a crystal. We do have a red crystal, which leaves a white or a blue. And I do think white is swiftness, white is mana draw. I think that's the better pick, so we just get the white crystal back. So we reroll the die. Comes up black as well, so it's really getting dry. The dragon will not do anything in the 4th turn, which brings us to the 5th. In the 5th, the dummy will exhaust the stack, so blue, white, and green. And we should have drawn, of course, still to a hand limit of 5. So there's an improvisation, the Song of Wind, a mana draw, a determination, and Savage Harvesting. And we can plan our 5th turn. So we have neither the concentration nor the swiftness, so I think that's 2 of the 3 cards that we are still missing. The red cards we have seen all. The blue cards are missing a stamina, so it's a concentration, swiftness, stamina that we are still having in the deck, which does mean we have a glorious last turn with 7 range attack, and we can think about what to do now. I'm somewhat tempted by this improvisation. It's a lot of influence, so maybe pick up the Stout Resolve, and I use the last turn to burn it down. And the nice thing is that the dungeon taking a day will still be Night Sharpshooting supported because it's night rules in the dungeon. So there's no hurry to use this bonus now, because on the next day it's actually quite efficient to then do the dungeon. The downside of interacting now again and then burning it down is that we are getting an artifact that we can't use. At least not in this round then, because it's our last turn where we get it. We do have some movement here and some movement coming up. That's a bit sad, because I really do not want to move away. We can of course explore, but it will not give us a crystal, and one of these cards will then be pointless. And I don't think, no matter what I explore, I will not proceed to the core tiles, because I think the monastery is just far too nice to pass on. We will get a command slot soon, and if we are not burning down the monastery, we will be in a negative, but not that much. Because it's Blizz rules, we start with +2. So learning something could be improvisation with one of the movement cards, and the other one to reveal the core tile first. That would mean we are using 3 cards. We are lacking 1 influence point then, unfortunately, because we lost the bonus and it's just 5. And we need 6 to pick up Stout Resolve. But Stout Resolve will replace pretty much everything that we are dropping. So maybe determination is not that important. Hopefully we can kill whatever is in the monastery with range attack anyway. 7 should really be enough. If not, cards like this are actually quite nice. But then again, cards like Stout Resolve are as nice. And we do have green in the source, so that's also a good point. And the mana draw we can just keep. The mana draw is currently quite pointless because getting a second die doesn't do anything if it's all black. But we do have a white crystal, so we can get a lot of mana if we want to. So in a sense, maybe we just do exploring, learning Stout Resolve, in addition to the mana draw and the last 3 cards of the deck, and have a last turn where we burn it down. The dragon will then also destroy a site. At that point, that is actually the keep, because this point where I am is on the equidistant lines here with the other tower and the oasis. So the next line is the former furthest line where the dungeon now is also. So the keep is actually further away. So the dragon will destroy it, and I actually don't care. Well, actually, if I'm revealing a core tile now, probably he will destroy something there. Unless it's the lair, but even then he might destroy something there. But that's actually something to keep in mind, because it's then the closest site to his lair, not the furthest from the portal, which makes these tiles quite unlikely. But I do think on the tile there are sites, so he will not destroy the dungeon. I think that's the most important part for me. But he might destroy it in the beginning of the next day. That would be quite bad. But not exploring the core tile is probably not a good idea. And if it's not the lair, and there's a 2 in 3 chance that it's not the lair, then he will just destroy stuff there. And I think that's as good as it gets. Picking up Stout Resolve is, I think, a big deal. It's a way to deal with wounds and a lot of flexibility. And burning down the monastery is probably prudent because we do get an artifact. Although we can no longer hire there next day. That's a bit sad then, and we will have a third slot. But if we are not burning it down, what are we doing then? We could of course learn it now and then just move on. But moving to the dungeon feels bad. Even though we have the Song of Wind, maybe the 1 point of damage difference for the monastery is not actually that important. And if we are doing the dungeon now, or at least this round, we can then use the monastery before burning it down in the next day. But for the dungeon, there's always a chance that you just get a spell. And I think I want to refresh the offer before that and use control of the offers to really see 2 more spells. So I think that's the better idea here. Yeah, I think we just have to live without a monastery in the next day and just burn it down in the last turn of the round. So for the last 2 rounds, we will first interact with the monastery and then most likely burn it down. But we will play the Song of Wind to explore, to see our first core tile, which might be the lair, hopefully not. Because if it's the lair, the dragon will start destroying sites that are closer to the lair, which endangers our dungeon. I don't want that. So there's only a 1 in 3 chance that it's the lair, and I kind of hope it's not, actually. With the rest of the turn, we will then interact with the monastery. We will need to use the crystal, unfortunately, so we are getting 5 influence and 1 sideways card for 6, and then learn the Start Resolve. And we will then hold on to the mana draw, Start Resolve in the last 3 cards of the deck, and then have Concentrate Swiftness to burn down the monastery. But let's reveal first, and then we can decide if this plan still holds up. I said in the beginning, one of the tiles is actually fixed, so one of them is the lair. I think it's the core tile 3. One is the city, which I don't know which it is, and then we picked randomly one of the new tiles, just that you have more of an opportunity to see them. And since these are really easy to distinguish, we will now just roll. Let's make the new tile gold and black, one of these tiles red and blue, and the other one green and white, and just roll a mana die. The die comes up black, so it's actually the new tile, which does mean it's not the lair. We do roll for orientation. Comes up red, so rotate it twice counterclockwise. So this would be the regular orientation, and we rotate it twice, which does actually reveal another monastery, so we could even learn something else, depending on what we reveal now. On the tie, we do have the monastery, where there's actually a fireball to learn. That will be a tough decision, because it's also range attack with an element, with a good one for the final battle. There's a summoning dragon, which could be interesting for the next day to kill with our fireball, and maybe also the firebolt if you pick it up. An oasis, a pyramid, and a mountain. So the dragon will most likely destroy the pyramid first, and then either the dragon, the oasis, the monastery, or the keep. Which gives me a lot more time to go to the dungeon. And we will have to explore the core tile here, the next one. If it's still not the lair, we have to put it here. These are coastline spaces, so this will not work. But I'm quite happy with this. But we do have to think about what to learn now. So the plan still holds, of course, but do we pick up the Start Resolve or do we pick up the Firebolt instead? The Firebolt will give us so much flexibility with the range attack in the dungeon that we could, with the concentrated Firebolt, make it a range fire attack 5 with 2 from Night Sharpshooting. That might be inefficient at that point if there's some enemy with physical resistance, which would still net us a range attack of 6 against enemies that are physical resistant. I think that's almost a guarantee then to defeat whatever comes up. And the Firebolt could also double for a mana source for getting us crystals, since we do have a fireball. And we do have no crystals currently, at least no red ones. So I'm really tempted by this. The Start Resolve is nice, but I'm not going to learn for 2 consecutive turns. I could pick up the Start Resolve and use it for influence and then pick up the Firebolt and just not burn down the monastery this night after all. Or is this even the way to go? Pick up 2 good cards and then just start the day with maybe hiring again or learning something else and then burning it down? But it feels a bit slow, because then it would mean that in the next day would have to burn down a monastery and go to the dungeon, maybe even to another monastery, reveal more tiles. But we do have the time maybe, because on the day we will probably not do the final battle with the dragon. We still have to get much more powerful for that. It's also noteworthy that this is in a swamp, so this is really hard to reach. Yeah, but I think with Concentrated Swiftness still in the deck, do I really want to spend the last turn not using that? I could use the concentration on something else, of course, and the Swiftness would then just be wasted. And we could also not use the Firebolt if you're learning it in the last turn, because you would draw it at the end of the round, and there's no chance to use it then. I think I want to put my skills to use and pick up an artifact now, and just proceed onwards next day. And just to point it out, there would be a ridiculous idea to use Savage Harvesting instead, and just walk around in the plains, picking up 2 crystals, so we could power that with the green die. Maybe it rerolls to something more useful. And then drop 2 other cards, because Mana Draw is kind of dead currently, unless we are using a crystal, to actually pick up a white and a blue. We will still be here, and then next turn we can, for example, burn it down. But then we would not learn any card. And I think it's far too tempting to at least pick up one of them. The Firebolt could mean that we are not needing to pick up the Swift Bolt, because it's still just another small range attack card, and without a large hand limit, all these small range attacks will not scale to 36, so that's not a way to scale. But they are useful, of course. They are useful in the snowballing phase, and if you can make a sparring power play, then with cards like Blood Ritual, you will have the mana to cast them all, so maybe picking up both is even a play. But I think we can see what the offer refreshes to. We'll probably not get rid of Swiftbolt with Control Review offers, but we can see what it refreshes to and if there's something else that's more tempting. But we really need to get the hand limit increase, which is 6 fame away, which is probably too much for just the monastery. Yeah, I think we don't have the time to do stuff like just running around with Savage Harvesting. So the original plan to get 6 influence probably still holds, but I'm thinking about the last turn. We do have Concentrated Swiftness with green and this and a Firebolt, but we also have a mana draw and a stamina. And if we are using the mana draw now to discard it, I mean, not using the card itself, because again, it's pointless unless we are using the white crystal, and we do have the mana for concentration in the source. We could leave Stamina and Savage Harvesting, which at least is a crystal, so we could loop next turn and then use the rest of the cards to burn it down, and it would net as a crystal. I think holding on to Savage Harvesting is actually more interesting than holding on to mana draw. We would not need to power this to get just one crystal. I think that's an optimization, to be honest. And I think I just want to pick up the Firebolt for the reason that it will be more secure to burn down a monastery if we are entering and encounter a physical resistant enemy, because we have 7 range attack. If there's something that we have 4 armor and physical resistance, we would already be in trouble. So we slightly changed the plan that we are holding on to Savage Harvesting to maybe pick up a crystal next turn, and we are using a red crystal with improvisation, discarding mana draw and playing a determination sideways for 6 influence. We don't have a bonus, and we are picking Firebolt up after all. It will be more secure to burn on a monastery, and range attack is quite welcome, and if nothing else it will give us a red crystal if it's not actually needed for the next turn. So that's then all played. Crystal unfortunately is gone, and we did not touch the source, but we do need this for concentration next turn anyway. So that's our 4th turn. We do draw the rest of our deck, which is of course the Fireball that we just picked up. The Song of Wind of course is also discarded. There's the Stamina, there's the Swiftness, and there's the Concentration. So we did not screw up in planning that. Which doesn't mean the dragon is now destroying a site, and the furthest away is definitely the mountain, which of course it can't destroy, but the pyramid and the forest are on the same distance, so the pyramid is destroyed. Again, the dummy will announce the end of round in his 6th turn, so let's get rid of the deck to mark this. And now we play our 6th turn. And if we haven't screwed up, we can now do the Stamina Savage Harvesting loop with 4 movement, loop around to the monastery, which will give us any crystal that we want. We will then have a concentration with a green source die, and either a Swiftness or a Firebolt to make it a physical or fire range attack 5, with the Knight Sharpshooting to make it a physical 7 or an elemental 6, so to speak, by having this be inefficient. And I think this should take care of whatever we can face in a monastery. We could of course just move to the dungeon. By holding onto so many movement cards, this is actually just 4 and Wasteland is 4, we would still get a crystal. Actually we would have to discard something, I forgot that. Yeah, that screws with the plan. Unless we are using a crystal, which is kind of pointless. So the looping is actually a dumb idea if we are not being able to power any of this. But what I do like is that my planning ended up giving us 4 movement. So we do have the option to take the dungeon instead of the monastery. A monastery is trivial to reach, it's just plains. So we could leave that be and have another chance at some nice advanced actions on hiring and can burn it down next turn. The only reason against the dungeon was that the spell offer is kind of bad currently, and it's a 1 in 3 chance that we get a spell. And it's a really bad that neither Chill nor Whirlwind in either form, powered or unpowered, do anything for us. So probably it's just Underground Travel at that point. But it would not even make us reach the other monastery because it's swamp. Yeah, I think we would just have to pray that we are getting an artifact. But seeing the map, my concern is that we will get a 3rd slot soon. If not now, then after killing anything else in the next day. And we need some place to fill that slot. And if we burn down a monastery, there's really just the other monastery in the swamp that's left. That's currently revealed. Well, the Oasis is. That's a point. But it can only hire us the village units. And with core units, I think there's a chance that there's something really good to pick up. And we might not be able to do that. So the decision here is, do we go for the dungeon? The dungeon will be a dungeon enemy, of course, instead of a mage tower unit. I think they are slightly harder. And with so much range attack and the ability to turn it into an elemental attack, I think the dungeon is also almost safe, the dungeon enemies. Of course, there's always the Cryptron or the Shadow. The Shadow just because it has 8, because it's elusive, and we can't reach 8, we can reach 7. And the Cryptron, of course, because it's fortified. In the Mage Tower, it's really just the Fire Golems, because they are fire and physical resistant with an armor of 4, so again, 7 does not do it. But with an armor of 3, at least, it will just be 2 wounds. And we can power the Firebolt with concentration and the swiftness, if need be, with the crystal. That's actually something that we can always do to even come up with much more range attacks. So we can actually come up with 10 if we are sacrificing a crystal. So it's just a Crypt Worm that can really screw us, and there's nothing from the Mage Tower units that we can't defeat. So with all this firepower, the dungeon might be nice to take out now, but we might end up with a spell. If we go for the secure route of getting an artifact now, we will not have this monastery next day to learn something, heal, or hire, which I'm not sure what the right decision here is, but I think I want to go for the dungeon now to have the option to use the monastery next day. Depending on the offer, that might really be nice to have the monastery still. And if we get a spell, we just take the underground travel, which gives us options to move much faster through the map. So it's a tough decision on what to do with the last and 6th turn here. If we burn it down now, or if we go to the dungeon, which we can do because we have movement 4 now. The Savage Harvesting play actually does not work because we don't have a spare card. At least we do not know what will be the spare card, if there's any. So moving this without powering any of this does not give us a crystal, unfortunately. We would have to probably power this and then toss this, which gives us a blue. So instead we are using these 4 movement points to travel to Wasteland, leaving the monastery for the next day, not ruining our reputation, and maybe being able to pick up another nice advanced action or a unit for our 3rd slot that we will get quite soon. On the other hand, if we are not getting 6 fame now, then we will probably not have the slot at the beginning of the next day. If we then level by burning it down, we will not have the option. But we do have so much firepower here with elements and physical. We can even come up to 10 if we want to, if we use a crystal, that I think it's good to deal with the dungeon now. The Crypt Worm is the only thing that will screw us because it has fortification. So we do enter the dungeon and see what we get. And the monster we encounter in the dungeon is a Crypt Worm. That's comically bad. I think in the last videos I made, I had a lucky pull once or maybe twice, but most of the rest of the time I'm really getting screwed by this. This is quite annoying, to be honest, but it is what it is. So we can't kill it at range, and we don't have any block, and we can't use units, of course, but we do have an armor of 3, so at least that's just 2 wounds in quotes. And we left the monastery, so it might be easy to heal them next day. And then we only need 6 attack, which we can do by a concentrated swiftness. With Night Sharpshooting, that's even 7 attack, even 7 range attack, but it does not do much, of course. But it will kill the token, which leaves the Firebolt open to at least give us a red crystal. So I think that makes the most out of it. Unfortunately, we are picking up 2 wounds that I would rather not have. And it's just 5 fame, unfortunately. But I'm not actually sure there's more fame than that in a dungeon. So we will sit at 23, again 1 fame short from the next slot. We mark the dungeon as being conquered by us. This die would be rerolled, but it's the end of the night anyway. Skill is used. And we do get our reward, which does mean rolling this, and if it's a non-standard color like black or gold, it's a spell, and I hope we do get an artifact. But of course, this also rolls black, so this is really sad. So we do have to pick up a spell, and chill with target enemy, lethal chill with target enemy, whirlwind with target enemy, and tornado with target enemy all do not work against arcane immune enemies, so not against the heads of the dragon. So none of these spells will do anything for the final battle, and also they will not do anything against the Summoning Dragon, to point it out, because it's also arcane immune. Which does mean Underground Travel might be the best pickup here, even though it's just a movement spell. That's so sad. I should not have gone to the dungeon, but again, hindsight is 2020. Let's try to make the best out of it. Yeah, I think Underground Travel is just the most flexible. It could even just bring us to the Oasis, for example, for 1 green mana, which usually would be a travel cost of 5 a day. So we are picking this up. It seems I can't catch a break with these pulls and rolls. The replacement spell is Call to Arms or Call to Glory. Nice. But that's it for the night. The dragon does not get a turn. We did almost level twice, but again, we are 1 fame short. That's really sad, even though it's Blizz rules. We are not in the positive reputation part again, and we are planning to burn on Monastery, but we haven't yet, so we are still at 0, not -1. We just picked up the spell. We unfortunately also picked up 2 wounds, but we did pick up Firebolt. That's nice. Has the right element, it's ranged. We do have the Blood Ritual that we decided to pick up, which will solve mana issues for the final assault with black mana and other mana that we do need to make all this work. We did not pick up the Story Resolve for the Need, unfortunately, but specifically for the Need, it means that the dummy will pick it up. So you'll have a green card in his deck without having a green crystal. He will pick up a blue crystal, which he now has 3 of, and we gave him 1 blue card in the first round, so that's not optimal. And I will gladly use the control of the office to get rid of Whirlwind, but I will not use it for the Swift Bolt because it's range attack, and I think that's worthwhile keeping as an option. The advanced extra for refreshes with Into the Heat, that's nice, that's really good, because it means that the scouts will already have 4, and if we have any other chances to pick up range attack units, that could be a way to scale for the final battle. The spell offers showing Restoration and Tremor. Tremor again will not work because it's targeting enemies in both the regular and the powered version. Restoration is a good healing spell. We can even ready units, but it's hard to make good use of it. We ready our units, flip our mana skill, which unfortunately I think we could not do before, since we attacked, interacted, and attacked again, so I don't think there was much room for a turn without any other action. Preparation is gone, mid and meditation is gone. Well, I think that's fine. Start resolve, unfortunately, is gone. But since we decided to leave the monastery, we'll have 2 advanced actions in the offer. One is the Crushing Bolt, so another range attack or even siege. And pass, finding a nice movement skill. Units are replaced, and we will now have 2 silver, 2 gold. So let's see what the silvers are. Peasants, so not that interesting at that point. And herbalists, which are a mana source, healing source, can ready other units, but also not that useful at that point. Let's see what the gold units are. It's much more important. We do have gunners. That's really good. Range fire attack 6. But unfortunately, keep and city. So unless this is the city, it will be quite hard to hire them. And alter mages. Now that's a broken unit. If you can pick it up in a city, again, we would need a city for that. But those, of course, are always nice because you can turn every attack into siege. But we do not have a large attack source yet. Let's shuffle the dummy deck. Actually, I think I just realized that the dragon will not destroy a dungeon because it will either destroy marauding enemies or inhabited sites or crystal mines. But adventure sites are really not inhabited sites, so I think they won't even be targeted by the dragon. Which kind of makes the discussions about the dungeon being in jeopardy quite pointless. But it's actually nice to realize and nice to know. But let's see what happens. So let's shuffle our deck. Unfortunately, we did not pull any units that can be hired in a monastery. Except the herbalists, of course. But also, as almost anticipated, we are lacking 1 fame to have the slot anyway, so if we are now leveling using the monastery, then it's gone anyway. But maybe we can kill the dragon with Firebolt, Fireball, that would be nice. That's 9 fame, that really brings us forward. With Blitz Roots, that would be 33, so 2 fame away from leveling again and getting another skill and advanced action. The second day starts with gold, black, white and red in the source. And since we are lacking 1 fame, we are again just drawing 5 cards as a starting hand, which are the Firebolt, a Tranquility right away, a Blood Ritual, that might be a combination, a Concentration, interesting, and a Ruthless Coercion. Let's maybe move that here. And the remaining tactics are Early Bird, Right Moment, Mana Steal and Great Start. And let's think about what we do. With the Concentrated Firebolt, of course, we do have a range fire attack of 5, with the option to increase it to 6 with a physical element. So all the tokens that do not have resistances with 5 or 6 armor are already dead. We do have the Blood Ritual with Tranquility to heal the wound, but we do have 2 wounds in the deck, we must not forget that. And we do have an Influence card that can ready units as well. The dragon I can't kill with this. We would need a Fireball for this. We would have enough mana, definitely, with the Blood Ritual and Shamanistic Ritual to cast them both, but I'm not sure where in the deck it is, so it's a large gamble to wait for that, and I'm not going to fight 2 summoned dungeon enemies. We also do have a distinct lack of movement in the starting hand, so we can't actually get anywhere unless we are playing something sideways. And the tactics do not really help, besides Great Start. So there's 2 more cards, and then we can, if nothing else, use them for movement too, and just go to the monastery and burn it down. I don't think Mana Steal is a good option here, because we do have Blood Ritual and Shamanistic Ritual, as said, and have 3 crystals. So stealing another die doesn't do much if you don't have a good first turn. And without movement, we don't have it. We are sitting on Wasteland with a Conquered Dungeon. We're not entering it again just to get fame. Or are we? I've never actually done that. But it would level us, give us a slot so we could hire in a monastery before burning it down. Or learn from it. Actually, hiring in a monastery can only give us the herbalists. And I don't really want them. I really want to fill the 3rd slot with the gunners or the mages. Which does mean I have to move forward. And I really don't need to wait on a monastery. The monastery could heal us wounds, but there's also a glade. So maybe we just move from the monastery to the glade once we get to the wounds in the deck and just heal them from the discard pile, for example. And then reveal a tile here and see what it is. And if it's a city, we can really go hiring. And if it's a lair, we have to think about if we can justify a first attack on the dragon just to reduce the heads, maybe. Yeah, but from the tactics, it's either going before the dummy, stealing a die, or most likely going after the dummy, but having 2 more cards. And I think 2 more cards currently is the only sensible option, because I don't feel like playing 2 cards sideways, and I'm not playing Tranquility just to draw. That's always a waste. But actually, it's not only great start, but we do have also the scouts for movement. So we can use the scouts to get out of this pickle, which does mean we can just move to the monastery and then burn it down. With any luck, we can do that. We will have an artifact. We could also play these 2 cards to get a mana and a crystal, which leaves this, which is currently quite pointless. But we will have a hand limit of 6 after leveling. And maybe we can just hold on to the card until we reach a side where we can actually hire something useful. This would circumvent the need for great start, and could mean we can go with a lower tactic. It's just 1 lower, but suddenly we have a 2 in 3 chance instead of 1 in 3 to go before the dummy, and we can still grab a die, which is either red or white, but to what end? That's the problem here. We would sit on the die and remove it from the source until we have some use for it, but it sounds like red will have a use. Or we just go with the early bird and just go before the dummy, but I'm not sure this is the best course of action. I'm not that worried about the dragon anymore. If it has a 6th turn, then so be it, because destroying sides at some point is not that important anymore. It's more important that we have the time to prepare against the dragon and level and snowball enough. But it could mean that we want to take this monastery as well. But it's somewhat out of position. It's a swamp, that's 5 movement, it's the first problem. And then we are stuck behind a summoning dragon that we might not be able to kill. And we can't move out like this, so we would have to travel through Wasteland again, which is just 1 point more. And if we draw the Song of Wind, that's actually not a big deal. If we power it, then it's just movement 2 to get to the other one. And it would be another artifact. And maybe that's the way to go. But it would mean we need to come up with movement 5, which again with this hand we can't do, even with the scouts. So maybe drawing 2 cards and seeing what's up and maybe leaving the scouts is the better play here. I'm somewhat tempted to see what happens here, even though I will most likely go after dummy. But just taking that for a slightly better chance that might not hit actually, and then having a die from the source that we probably do not need, also doesn't sound like a great plan. So let's go with the great start after all. I'm just curious now, I want to see these cards. So we don't go with great start because we do not have movement, even though the scouts can move us to the monastery, but there's a reason to maybe go to this monastery first, because it's in swampland. So if we can invest this now and get an artifact from this and then go on from there and go into position, that might be better. And I'm just tempted to see what the 2 cards are I get, if this changes anything or not. We do have so much mana that if we get a movement card, then maybe these other monasteries actually better to go first. And we will have the other one then to heal and learn maybe later. So let's just take great start and see what happens. And there's a 1 in 3 chance now that the dummy will pick up the right moment, otherwise he will again be before us, which I think is not too bad. We will probably have 6 turns nevertheless. And the dummy goes with the right moment. That's actually lucky and interesting. So finally Krang is going before Tovak, and we can start with our first turn, but we will draw 2 cards first, which is a promise, maybe not something I wanted to see, and a swiftness. That's more range attack. Let's see what we can do with this. So there's a little bit of movement, but not that much actually. So now with the scouts, we do have 4 movement points. If we toss the promise, it's actually 5. So in a sense, we have drawn 3 movement instead of 2. And promise is really not the card that I want to see now, unless we are interacting first. But you don't have a bonus. So this is just 4 if you power it, unless we are combining it with this. We could ready them again for 2, but I'm somewhat tempted to just get this monastery out of the way and just burn it down. We will be at -1 then, the other one will bring us to -3. So unless we are killing a dragon, it will be quite hard to hire the gunners. But of course it depends on the artifact we get, if this matters or not. Do we need pathfinding? I think not, because we do have underground travel and Song of Wind already, so another movement skill won't do it. Do we want crushing bolt? It would be yet another advanced action with a range attack. Again, 3 physical in a sense. Physical is actually something we need because 2 of the heads are cold fire resistant. So it's not the worst, but it's also not scaling. Actually, I think it's not that important. I think I'd rather pick up into the heat and get a nice army. And the gunners are the first step to this. And the mages would be good, but this depends on what we scout. So I think I want to burn through the monasteries quite literally and then go here and see if it's a city or not. Which would mean having 5 movement and then having all these cards available to kill whatever's in the monastery, which again is 5 range fire attack and 1 physical. There are some tokens that I cannot kill with this, which is a reason to hold on to this, unfortunately. It's really a pity that we can't use underground travel if we go here first, because it's much easier movement-wise to then, if we draw it, to go to the other monastery because it's in swampland. And we are not actually powering anything of this. This is also what I find non-optimal, because we have all this mana if we power this. So maybe go there, but not with this, but instead with the Tranquility. It's a bit sad to let that go, but monasteries can heal us. If we are interacting there anyway, this could power these 2 cards and give us another crystal of any color. We hold on to this for burning it down, but it would be 10 influence with the ability to ready. And we would use the scouts to reach it, so we can ready them for 2. That leaves 8. 1 wound leaves 6, which leaves a card to learn. Maybe we do just pick up the Crushing Bolt. It's again an alternative to this, since we need this for movement. So if we end up fighting a fire-resistant enemy, which is not physical resistant, then the Crushing Bolt may actually help. But there will not be an advantage of having siege attack, of course, because in the Mage Tower units there is nothing that's fortified. Is this worth spending a turn and burning through all these cards to pick up a card and not burning it down? It could mean, depending on what I draw, that I can kill the dragon. That's the point. It would give me much needed fame. I would probably not use the concentration then, but I do have another swiftness in the deck, which can then be used to burn down monasteries. It's also worth pointing out that the scouts in a night sharpshooting are 2 physical range attack, which is a point against the dragon. So it's only 7 in quotes that we need. But this is 5, so we're lacking 2, and the fireball is just 5 by itself. This seems like a lot of investment. Just cleaning up after the wound, where we will get a crystal, we will have the scouts again, we will have reached the swamp, and we will have a card. Yeah, if we learn this, draw the fireball, we can kill the dragon and still have the concentration crushing bolt. That's actually a good argument. And if we draw a lot of wounds, we can still try to just heal them in the monastery before going forward. It's tempting to do both monasteries to pick up 2 artifacts. Maybe that's the snowballing we need. Let's just try that. So we decide to attempt to burn down both monasteries, even though this will tank our reputation. And if we want to do that, we should really get into the swamp monastery at some point. That's 5 movement points, unfortunately. It's really rough terrain. But we have drawn the swiftness. We can play the tranquility sideways, use the scouts. That's 5 movement points. We can then use the blood ritual with the red die from the source to take a wound. But we also get 2 other tokens. Let's just make them gold to power both of those. That's a combined 10 influence without a bonus. 2 will just heal this in the monastery, so we are at 8. Since this is level 1, we can just ready that for 2. That's 6. And let's clean it all up. So we do have enough to learn something, and we just pick up the Crushing Bolt. It's just maybe mana, maybe some range attack. That's just nice to have. And we are now in position to burn it down next turn. And depending what we draw, we can either heal or even attempt a dragon, so we are in a nice position. And we will have a good shot at just burning it down. Source die comes up blue, and we will draw 3 cards. There's the Crushing Bolt, of course, so 2 more. There's the Underground Travel, which we want to use to get away from this, to not provoke the dragon if we can't kill it. And there's a March, so more movement. So these 2 cards are not the best, actually, so we have to make do with this. But again, we have the combination that we have fire or physical range attack 5 with 1 bonus here. And we hope that this time this will actually do. But it's 5 cards, unfortunately. We still have not increased our hand limit. The dummy goes after us. So his first turn he will draw red, blue, and green. So we already discarded the extra blue card and hit green again. It's lucky. And in the first turn of the dragon, he will destroy a site. So at that point, this was destroyed. So we are back to the dragon, actually. The dragon, the oasis, or this keep. The keep is a place where we can hire the gunners. That's something to keep in mind. And we can reach it with underground travel, but we could not get back. That's the big problem. So I do think I want to have the chance to maybe kill the dragon afterwards. So I don't want to get rid of it now, although it would make it easier to traverse the land. The keep, as said, if I'm not planning on going there and it's really off position, I think it's the safest thing to destroy. Unless I want to get rid of the dragon to be able to just move there without provoking it. Otherwise I would have to move like this, but we do have underground travel already. And the oasis, there's no real reason to destroy that. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to the keep, so let's destroy this. Again, we reveal this. This time these are guardsmen. And the keep is reduced to rubble. So that's the first turn of the dragon, and we are in our second turn. And at that point, I just want to enter. We do have a gold source die, so this can power concentration, and we will either have ranged fire attack or ranged physical or even siege attack. 5 with a 1 point bonus, and I hope that's good enough, and we hold on to this to then move away next turn. So let's burn down the monastery. It costs us 3 reputation, so we're now at -1, and we will see what the defenders are. And the units will not participate, of course. And the defenders of the artifact in the cell of the monastery are sorcerers. So it's actually a lucky break for a change, because this or this will be 5, this is 6, so 1 card we can keep, the other one will go. And I think with a dragon right beside me, I will hold on to the firebolt. So that's siege deck 5, night sharpshooting 6, and that just killed them. So we hold on to this, get 5 fame, 28 with blizzard rules 9. We mark the monastery with our shield. This is used. This will be re-rolled. These are both used. We are not using anything else. Die comes up black, unfortunately. We will get the artifact before leveling, but let's just put that here. We finally have a hand limit of 6. And the choice of artifact is between the Amulet of the Sun, which can turn night into day rules. So we can use gold tokens and it produces gold. And it also reduces the movement cost. Or the Endless Gem Pouch. So unfortunately it's just the choice between mana and mana. And I think with mana we are already quite fine. So I'd rather have pulled something else. And to be honest, I think I'd rather pick up the Gem Pouch. Because it's probably more mana. And I think the Amulet of Darkness is much better than the Sun. Because of the powered version of spells. Because you can cast an AtD then. This doesn't do as much. And if you break it, it's just gold token. So it doesn't help with spells. This is a token of all colors and a black at night. And if nothing else, if I'm rolling unlucky or lucky, depending on how you see it, will actually get fame. And since I was already lacking one fame twice, I think the Gem Pouch might even be better just to maybe even level. And if not, we will pick up 2 more crystals. And I think stocking up on crystals is quite important. So both are mana artifacts, but the Gem Pouch I think is better for us at that point. So we are taking that. So we are drawing up. And of course, the first card is the pouch. Then we have a Rage and a Determination. So this was the second turn. Let's see what a dummy does. It's blue, white, and green. Another green again. So another short turn. And a dragon in the second turn does nothing. So we are on our third turn. So unfortunately we did not draw the fireball, so we cannot kill the dragon. Even though we have Determination now, so we could maybe or most likely block one of the tokens. But we don't have enough firepower. We have so much movement here. I think it's clear that we play the pouch. We are not breaking it, of course. Although we could try to kill the dragon with the golems and the Determination. But where's the damage coming from? We just have the Firebolt and Night Sharpshooting and 1 damage from the Scout, so that's nowhere near enough. If we don't have more elemental damage, then we do need a lot of inefficient physical. Yeah, so there's no way to attempt that. And we also have to keep in mind that this is our third turn. So if we are not ending in an inhabited site, we will get a problem with the dragon. So now it's around 3, so it's a brutal fire attack 3. It's a swift physical attack 3, which is relevant because of our golems. It's 2 attacks that poison, and it's a cold attack 3 that freezes. So at that point I'm thinking on where do we actually take shelter here? You only get help from an inhabited site, and you can ignore 1 head if it's not fortified, 2 if it's fortified. So we could take shelter in the Oasis to ignore 1 head at least. But the only other fortified side is actually this tower here. Problem is that it's not night, so underground attack would have been perfect because it's 3 spaces away, and we can ignore fortification to then maybe kill something with ranged. Because we have Siege Deck 1 and a Fire Deck of 3, which is not that much. But I do think with these cards and all these units, we should really have a good chance to take the tower. I would not normally consider backtracking like this, but in this particular scenario, you really have to plan where you take shelter, or if you do want to take shelter at all once the dragon attacks. But it's already the third turn, and to be honest, I did not think too much about where I will be in the third turn of this second day. The monastery I'm at, we already burned down, which does leave the other monastery, but I do not really want to lose that, and it would only ignore 1 head because it's not fortified. Which pretty much leaves the tower, and taking the tower might not be the worst idea. I would probably pick up Call to Arms, since again Tremor is not useful against the dragon. And Call to Arms could be a way to pick up more units, especially in the last night, where I can use Call to Glory. There might even be a world where we visit a dungeon again just for the night rules to cast Call to Glory today to pick up the gunners or the mages. But how would we get to the tower and take it? We don't know the defenders, but it's day, so at least we will know what we face before we need to spend the movement. We cannot do an underground attack, of course, because it's not night, but we can use this to travel 2 spaces. That would be the equivalent of 6 movement. But of course the tower is also in Wasteland, so we need another 4. We do need the green crystal to power underground travel or the shamanistic ritual, which leaves the march and the scouts, so we can definitely reach the tower, and we would have both the rage and the determination to fight, as well as the firebolt, of course also the day sharpshooting, and the golems. But then again, the golems we also want to have ready to deal with the other attacks of the dragon. We do also have a red crystal for the rage and a blue mana die for determination. Or we could also use the crystal for firebolt. But ranged attack most likely doesn't do us any good. But I think it's better to take wounds from taking the tower than from the dragon. We could also just move to the Oasis and sacrifice that. Underground travel would get us there without provoking the dragon, the summoner dragon. And we could circumvent the move cost of 5 at day, and would have the bonus, of course, once we move away, which would be the way forward. But then again, we want to burn down the other monastery too. But the way forward might give us the city with a 50-50 chance, where we can just hire these units. But if we burn down a monastery, we won't have the reputation to do that. So it almost sounds like if we go for the Oasis, we are gambling to get the city and forgo the monastery. But I do think I want the artifact, because up to now the artifacts have not been what I was looking for. I do think Call to Arms with Into the Heat might also just be a good combination, even if I just have it in the attack itself, because I do not actually need to hire the unit to make good use of it with Into the Heat. But how do we actually hire the gunners? Moving to the tower will be a lot of effort, but then again, going back to the monastery will not be, and we will have the opportunity to move via the glade as well. I think the basic decision here is, where do we take shelter or don't we take shelter at all? But I don't think without shelter that's a good idea. Determination will not even block the swift attack 3, and without an elemental block, the brutal fire and the freezing cold attack are also hard to block. And then we have 2 more attacks which are poisonous. The golems can absorb the swift attack, and with a mana we can block one of the elemental ones. So it would be good to ignore the 2 other heads. Otherwise, how do we block them? Of course, these 2 cards would block the poisonous attack, so that's 3 taken care of. So ignoring 1 head would actually do. This would not take any mana, just cost me the cards. So we could move to the Oasis. We would have movement 2, so another 3 movement points will get me to the monastery. It sounds a bit inefficient, but then again, moving away from the Oasis is actually not that hard. We could even pick up the Herbalists or the Peasants, but at -1, without any influence cards currently, we could not do it before it's getting destroyed. And I'm also still eyeballing this dragon, of course, because if we draw the Fireball together with the Firebolt, we can just kill the summoner. And maybe taking shelter in the Oasis, looking forward, revealing maybe the city, getting +2 reputation from the dragon and leveling is better than making the detour to the tower. We would not have Call to Arms, but we don't need it if we can hire the gunners. But it all banks on there being the city. But we could even explore the city too. It's still early in the day, so even if we are uncovering the lair, we could still reveal the city. And we can decide, depending on how we redraw, if we want to go for the monastery or not. Maybe tanking the reputation is actually not a good idea if Into the Heat pops up and we rather need a 4th command slot and need to fill them with good units. I actually do like that a lot, to just now move to the Oasis and maybe even just play the March to reveal the tile, so we know what comes up, if it's the city or the lair. We haven't played any movement cards yet, so just playing the March to explore is actually a good investment, I think. I like the idea. It's moving forward, not backwards, even though taking the tower would make the dragon much easier. But I think ignoring 1 head with the guardian golems and having these cards in hand is actually okay. And it leaves us in the vicinity of the summoning dragon. Let's hope we draw the Fireball, so we can kill the summoner dragon. Of course, it also depends on what the pouch gives us. Red would actually be appreciated, because if we are not fully attending, getting a mana for the golems means using a crystal, because we cannot use the source or the shamanistic ritual. Let's see what happens. So lots of options here, but we really need to take care of the dragon's attack. It's already the 3rd turn, so the dragon will attack me. And I did not really plan for this, and we are sitting on a burnt down monastery, and we should at least take shelter in any inhabited site that makes us ignore 1 head. 2 would be better, but that would pretty much mean backtracking to the tower, where we could pick up Call to Arms, but it's just the wrong direction. Would take a lot of movement, a lot of effort, so I think we rather move forward. And the first thing we do is using the Endless Gem pouch, because we will definitely not break it, so we will see what we actually roll here. So you're rolling 2 mana dice. Actually, I think it's 1 by 1. Just a minute difference, but I think you have to decide what to do if you roll gold, for example, before you know what the other die is. And this is actually black, so it's a fame. Let's see what the other die is. And it is actually gold, so we can decide on the crystal. And I do think with Firebolt, Fireball, and the chance to kill the dragon, and the guardian golems also need blue or red, and we can't use the source, I think I take another red crystal. So that's the pouch. We then use the shamanistic ritual to produce green, because there's no green in the source, to cast underground travel, and we move up to 3 revealed spaces. We can't travel through swamps and lakes, of course, but these are mountains, this is desert, so we are stopping there. That's the underground travel. We then use the March also to see what tile is revealed here, if it's the lair or the city, because it makes quite a difference on how we will proceed. So we are just using this unpowered and see what we get. So we made space, and now we need to roll between these 2 tiles. Let's say these are the light colors. white, green, and gold, and it comes up green. So it's this tile, and we roll the rows for orientation. Does come up white, so it's rotated once counterclockwise. And let's see. And it's actually the city, it's the blue city. That would be the normal orientation, which would screw us over. But it's rotated once, that's actually quite nice. There's still a dragon barring the way, but I'm really happy that we found the city before the layer. I actually did not think about if I want to use random city colors, and I think I do. It's not about conquering cities, so the only difference in the color is really the ability of the city, what you can do there. I don't even remember what blue is, but I think without looking that up, I think I just want to roll, because I do like this combinatorics of 4 different tiles, 4 different city colors, and having like these 16 combinations instead of just 4. So let's just stick with this and roll for the city color. And it's actually white, so we are placing the white city, which I think means it's an artifact city now, and blue would have been a mage tower. And arguably the mage tower would probably be enough better because we are not that good in influence currently, so it's really unlikely to come up with 12 influence for an artifact. And I'm actually wrong. I can't really remember, it seems. So the white city is actually the city where you can hire units, so this might be a really nice turn. And we do have a shield, as has the dummy. This is often the case for these neutral cities and scenarios. In the Against the Horseman with the 4 cities, it was not said that you have a shield. I think that's good because there's 4 cities and you can just walk there, you know where they are. So I do think you don't need this extra boost of 1 influence. But here I appreciate it actually that we have +1, which makes it much more likely that we can actually hire something. And especially the ability to reveal new gold units for 2 influence might also be really good. The combat ability is not important, so let's just put the shields here from the dummy and me. Alright, that was the march. And interaction is actually quite pointless because we are not recruiting, because we don't have any influence. We are at -1. We are not trading for crystals. Actually, we could recruit by selling crystals, but we would need to sell 2 to pick up the herbalists, and I don't think that's a good deal. And the revitalize is just important when you leave. So we are not interacting, which does mean we can just get our mana back. I think this is even better. So we have the shamanistic ritual flipped again, and that's our 3rd turn. So we do draw up to 6 cards. There's an improvisation, there's a swiftness, and a savage harvesting. So no fireball yet, unfortunately. The dummy plays red, green, and white, which is 1 more card, and I randomly pulled 4, that's nice. And this is blue, which is actually quite nice. So 3 of the blue cards are eliminated, and it's a fairly short turn as well. Which brings us to the dragon, and the dragon will attack me in the 3rd turn, so we will fly by again, and attack me with all heads but the control head. Now it's round 3, so we do have to deal with the level 3 attacks. I think I bumped it over a bit. Alright, so the golem has 3 armor and physical resistance, which mean we will just bump this head with swiftness, 3 physical into the golem. Then we will play determination and rage with block 2 each to block the 2 poisonous attacks of this head. Then we activate the golems with the red gem for a fire block of 4, which can block the ice attack. This leaves a brutal fire attack of 3, which we ignore by destroying the oasis. Actually, that means that we lose the 2 movement point bonus on leaving, but what can you do? So the oasis is reduced to rubble as well, so it's just a common desert at that point. So that's the dragon's turn. We did not fully attend, but we did play cards unfortunately, so we have to plan our 4th turn just with 4 cards. So if the oasis is gone, we can remove this and plan our 4th turn. So I think the objective is to reach the white city, because it's our ticket to getting the gunners, with a ranged fire attack of 6, which is increased with Into the Heat to 9. That's insane. So we really want to pick them up. But we do have to pass this dragon for this. Since we did not draw the fireball, we will not kill the summoner, and we probably do not want to linger here. So I do think we have to move forward. We could just sneak by the dragon, so to speak, by just wounding the scouts and ourselves. That would mean 5 movement. Or is there any chance that we can actually kill this dragon? It's just 4 damage, that's the nice thing about this dragon. But if you're not blocking it, and with a nice attack and swiftness, it's really unlikely to block it. You need to come up with 14 damage. Improvisation would be 5. We do have the day sharpshooting, that's 6. So it's 8 missing. But swiftness, fireball, they are just 3 each. So even if we draw the rage, that's another 4. We would need a fireball. It would be welcome to kill the dragon, because we do get 2 reputation, which gives us net 1 influence, and with the city shield that would mean we are actually at +1 instead of 0, because currently it just cancels out, which makes it much more likely to hire the gunners. But then again, we have already seen the Ruthless Coercion, and we have also seen the Promise, which does mean our influence cards are already in the discard pile. And how do we get the 8 influence that we need? And improvisation is actually quite nice for this because it can give us 5 and we would still need to play 3 cards sideways. Funnily enough, the gunners would be 6 damage. The fireball another 5, that's 11. So we need 3 more, which is either the swiftness or the firebolt. So if we have the mana, we could kill this dragon at range once we have hired the gunners. So maybe we take the damage once, hire them, and then try to kill a dragon. This will level us up and give us into the heat, which is a bit backwards to be honest, but it is a strategy. But getting to 8 influence is quite painful if you have to discard cards. So each influence point would be a card, which does mean killing the dragon will save us a card actually. My problem currently really is that all these cards I want to hold on to, improvisation before its influence, and these two for the range attack, although we probably do not need both, and this doubles as movement. Savage Harvesting is nice, but we are currently lacking cards. That's the resource we do not have in abundance. So using this to get crystal is probably out of the question. I think the only decision currently is, do we move to the hills and draw up, or do we just go into the city? And I'm actually tempted to just go to the city. This is 4 movement. The scouts give us another 2, that's 6. We need 5. We then wound the scouts and ourselves. We'll have a wound. The scouts already used and wounded. Easy to heal. And we will draw 3 cards, which does mean 1 for improvisation and 2 more, but it's unfortunately only 7 influence. To avoid the wound, we could also wound the guardian golems. It's 1 heal more to get them ready again, but it would draw us another card. But it's also a question if I really want to get rid of these cards. Maybe hiring the herbalist is not the worst idea. We do have a distinct lack of green mana, but we do have the shamanistic ritual. Actually, if we do draw the Song of Wind, we could cross into the city without provoking the dragon. So maybe just using those to reach the hills and call it a day means we are drawing 4 cards, have the scouts still open, and we can just use them to reach the city. I think that's the better idea here actually, and if we draw the Song of Wind, we could even circumvent getting wounded. So let's just do that. The battle with the dragon left us with 4 cards only. That's a bit sad, so this limits our options, but we definitely want to get into the White City, which probably means getting wounded by the dragon, but it's just an attack of 4, but we do not have 4 armor yet, so we would have to wound a unit as well. And it would clog up our hand, and we already have seen the Tranquility, so we could not even heal that. Which does mean we take it a little bit slow in the 4th turn, play these 2 for 4 movement. We are not getting a crystal because we don't have that many cards to toss. 4 movement is enough to get us to the hills. But we just take it easy here, and then actually if we are taking it that easy, we can flip the shamanistic ritual to power the savage harvesting, and then since we are not doing anything, flip this back. This will already bring us there, and we can either hold on to this or get a white crystal. Let's get rid of this, by the way. And I did not mention it, in the other monastery revealed the Frostbridge to learn the monastery as well. And I think I do want to toss this for a white crystal, which is even better than what we planned. So it nets me 1 crystal with the shamanistic ritual play. If you do turns without any proper action, this is really nice. But this is our 4th turn, unfortunately, but we do draw 4 cards now. There's a wound, that's a bit sad. I should have known that there are wounds in the deck. The Song of Wind is really good, because it can mean that we can circumvent the dragon by walking over the water. Another wound, which I should have known about, but I did pause for a long time within the round here, so my memory is not that fresh, sadly. And a Crystallize. But maybe there's a play with hiring the herbalists. I think that might actually be a good idea. But it is our 4th turn, which means the dummy is playing his 4th. He has 8 cards in his deck. And he's playing green, blue, and white. So the blue was the 4th blue, that's nice. And white is just 1 more, which is red. So there's 4 cards left, but unless we are hitting green, we now have 3 turns. In the 4th turn, the dragon will not do anything, which brings us to our 5th turn. The Song of Wind pull is nice, but we do have to power it and pay a blue to walk over lakes, which we could do with a white crystal and a blue source die. But I think it does not actually reduce the movement cost of the city, because it's a special kind of terrain type, which is not mentioned by Song of Wind. Unfortunately, it's not just plains, it's just 2, which is supposed to be nice, but in this case it's actually a bit sad, because we could have revealed the lair and then moved back to the city, but we do need 2 movement points to enter the city. And do we pay a crystal and a source die to circumvent the wounds? But I think the answer is yes, because otherwise we would have to get another wound ourselves and wound the scouts. But then again, wounding the scouts might be irrelevant if we are hiring the herbalists now to heal this, which I think I want to do. Then we might replace the scouts anyway. But I'm not sure it's actually realistic to hire the herbalists. It's another 4 influence because of the penalty, which would bring the total up to 12 that I need to produce to also pick up the gunners. And I'm not sure where this influence is supposed to be coming from. The reputation is working against us, and I don't think there's a card in the deck that gives us influence. So maybe it's really just resting to drop the wounds. play the Song of Wind, play the Crystallize and draw up, reveal the lair, because we can use the scouts to get another 2 movement points. We can actually just use them now to reveal the lair. We do have only 5 cards left, so we can't actually do that much, and I think we should aim at hiring and killing a dragon, because otherwise we are just totally underleveled and we need to pick up cards. So the deck contains a mana draw. As for the white cards, I think it even contains 2 staminas, because we haven't seen any yet. Then it should contain the Fireball and another Rage. So stamina, stamina, Rage, mana draw, Fireball. And I think I like the original plan to hire the Gunners and then use them, the Firebolt and the Fireball, for a combined attack of 14 and kill the dragon like this, which is nice to have a mana draw at that point, because it can give us 2 red and we might have to Shameless the Ritual or a Crystal. Which does mean we don't need the Rage, we don't need the 2 staminas. And these might be the cards that we drop to hire the Gunners in the first place. And since we are not interacting this turn, we can again use a free mana, which is so nice. I think I want to leave the white for the mana draw. So we would plan to use this to circumvent the wounds by walking over lakes. We then need this and would use this for the Crystallize. We then use the scouts to reveal the lair, but we could not get this back if we are resting. And since this makes this a bit pointless, because we could just not crystallize and flip this next round instead of picking up a red crystal now, because we do need a red, because we need a red for this, a red for this, a red for the Fireball, and a red for the Gunners. So 2 by mana draw. 1 crystal we already have, so we need another red. But why crystallize this if we then are just using this? If we are activating the Song of Wind anyway, we could also just go to the monastery. It's just completely free to go there, and we could just burn it down. But we would not get the Gunners then. And we have no idea what the artifact is and if this helps us in any way. It could be Endless Bag of Gold, for example, to give us influence, but there's a lot of other artifacts. And with the -3, we are actually literally at -3 influence, which sets the Gunners to 11 influence, and so they are completely out of reach. So I'm not sure this is a good idea. Also, we have to keep in mind that the dragon will destroy a site, and I think it's the monastery. The mountains are the furthest away, and this is the line of equidistance, which means the city is on the same range as the mountains, which makes the monastery the furthest side away. If we reveal the lair, he might destroy something else that's actually on the tile of the lair, so we should really explore that. So the decision here is if we do a resting turn, in which case we cannot even move, but we could use Crystallize. So we could Crystallize with the blue die, get rid of the wounds, keep Song of Wind, draw 3 cards. The alternative is to use the Song of Wind, go to the city, not do a resting turn, which means that we can flip this back, but we will have the 2 wounds in hand and have to only draw 2 cards, at which point we might need to do a rest. And the point of resting is that you do have to play at least 1 card, which does mean if we do it now, we can do the Crystallize, because it's a special effect, we can play that. Healing and special is okay in resting turns. But if we move now, we would have to maybe even toss a card, unless we are holding on to Crystallize for a resting turn afterwards. Which does mean we are drawing only 1 card. But my problem really is that the dragon will now destroy a side every turn. We are now on our 5th. The dummy will most likely exhaust his deck. So after our 6th, he will announce the end of round. Which will mean that we have a 7th turn and the dragon does not. So he's destroying 2 sides. So if we are moving now, we can save the monastery. But he will actually destroy 2 sides. So it depends on what's actually on the lair tile, if this helps us at all or not. Because he will destroy sides that are closest to the lair, and since there's really nothing here, this will most likely be closest anyway. The city will not be destroyed, it will never be destroyed, but he will destroy 2 sides now and 1 in the first turn of the final round, so I'm not sure we are getting to this monastery anyway. Since the tile of the lair is actually fixed, I think I will just look at it now, because it's open information. The lair is here, and the instructions say to ignore the ruins. So the dragon is sitting on these 3 tiles. The terrain is unchanged, it says, so this we can't even move to. So if you want to attack the dragon, I think you have to move into one of these. But there is a tomb and a mage tower and a mine, so there's a lot of stuff he can destroy. So this is something to keep in mind. If you are sprinting to the lair, you're kind of immune from the rest of the map where you are actually for sites to be destroyed, because there's actually 3 sites he's targeting. Because he does target, actually he's not targeting adventure sites. I was about to say because he does target mines, but usually he's only targeting rampaging enemies, so he might actually get rid of the dragon. We have to keep that in mind as well. It's 2 spaces closer than a monastery, for example. Currently it doesn't matter. But he does target marauding enemies, he does target inhabited sites, and I think it is a fallback mines, but adventure sites he does not even target, so it's just 2. Yeah, which pretty much means that if we reveal this now, he will destroy these 2, and at the beginning of the night, he will destroy the monastery. So unless we are then taking the monastery as a first turn, revealing this tile will not do us any good. But we can do that. It should not be hard to burn on a monastery as in the first turn. Of course, it depends on your cards. On the other hand, we don't have that much time in the last round. And it really depends on the opening hand. So maybe it's better to just focus on getting that gunner and killing the dragon and not care about the monastery too much. It's so tempting, of course, but we only have 3 turns left, I think. Unless the dummy hits the last green card, so he only plays 3 cards, then we might actually have 4 turns, but we shouldn't bank on that. And with 3 turns, we can rest, we can hire, we can destroy the dragon. That's the only thing we can do. And I think I like the resting option most because it's getting rid of 3 cards. So we are drawing 3 of the 5, but then we have to move, spending a lot of mana and hire in the same turn, which also means that if we are pulling the mana draw and the fireball, it's almost impossible to do that. Yeah, that's really the problem here. If we are not pulling the staminas and the rage to toss them, and we even need a card for improvisation to toss, and we do that all in the same turn where we do the Song of Wind, I think we need to face the fact that we probably can't kill the dragon. So maybe it's just moving to the city now, only playing the Song of Wind, maybe the Crystallize, drawing 1 or 2 cards, hiring the gunners, and then burning down the monastery with the fireball. But I think the problem is that we can't hire the gunners. We just don't have the influence. We did not pick up an influence skill, we don't have an influence card. Everything but the improvisation is already played, so we can't heal in the monastery, we can't hire the herbalist and hire the gunners. There's no way to get rid of the wounds without forfeiting the gunners, so we do need to get rid of them, and I think resting now is probably the best bet. Which does mean we are keeping the blue for the Song of Wind and just crystallize something. The skill is also a special effect, so we can use that. But we cannot pull that back, so that's the bad thing, so I think I'd rather take the blue. Actually, if we are not killing the dragon, we can just use the firebolt to produce a red crystal. It's also a special effect. That would mean that we play 4 cards and draw 4 of 5. So once we play this for movement, we will have 4 more cards, which is enough to hire. And I think this has to be the play. We are not leveling this day, but into the heat we can pick up next night, which also has the benefit that we will have it definitely in hand. We then need to hire something and play Sparring Power, I think. I think that has to be the play. We can't use the scouts now because it's a movement ability, which does mean the monastery gets destroyed. And we really need the underground travel to get past this dragon. On the other hand, no. If you are not revealing this now, the dragon will destroy any of these dragons at the end of the next turn. So we can have him destroy this. But then again, the Song of Wind and the underground travel will probably both be enough to get us into the lair. Alright, but that's enough pondering. It's a bit unfortunate, but what can you do? I think it's more than worthwhile to pick up the gunners. If you get any other range unit, I think we are very well situated to kill 3 heads at range. Into the heat and gunners will just kill a head. The Firestorm with the scouts, for example, or any other point of damage, the scouts will have 4 as well, will kill a head. We do have the night sharpshooting, and again the scouts will also have a bonus of 3, so that's 5 again. And we do have fireballs and swiftness, so I think 3 heads should be doable, which probably just means that the 4th we have to kill the old-fashioned way. Unless we are picking up another good unit that kills us the 4th head as well. So it's really unfortunate we are lacking the influence to do much. We can't use Song of Wind to go to the monastery and heal because we don't have influence. We can't really go to the city and hire the gunners again because of the influence. The only way to even get to the gunners is improvisation with 4 cards, 1 for improvisation, 3 to get the additional 3 influence that we are actually reaching 8. We do need to get rid of the wounds. We can't heal them, we can't hire the herbalists, we can't heal them in the monastery, so we need to rest, which does mean we can only use special effects, and we use the blue die to crystallize. And since we won't be able to kill the dragon, we just use the fireball to get another crystal, which does mean we pick up a red anyway from the firebolt. And I think I will pick up a blue because there might be a chance that we don't have blue after re-rolling this, and we will still need blue for the Song of Wind. So that's our 5th turn. We re-roll the die, stays blue, that might be fortunate. And we do draw 4 of the 5 cards that are still in our deck, which is a stamina, a mana draw, and a fireball, which should mean that this is a rage. Let's see if the dummy does actually announce the end of round after his next turn or not. But there's the green, so blue and red, which is 1 more card, which is white. So there was a chance, but it wasn't a good one, which does mean we have 2 more turns, and the dragon has also this turn and 1 more. In his 5th, the dragon will destroy the monastery. Since the lair was not revealed, which we could not do because in the resting turn we can't use the move effect of the scouts. This brings us to our 6th turn, and in this turn we do want to move into the city without getting wounded by the dragon, which means paying a white to get move 2 and have the move cost of plains, desert and wasteland reduced by 2. And the blue from the source allows us to travel through lakes for a cost of 0, which does mean we can move around here, even the plains will be 0, and then finally move into the city, so we can hire. And since the final move needs the 2 move points, we will activate the scouts to reveal the lair. So you're making room for the lair and getting rid of the rows, because I do not think I want to use random tile orientation for the lair, because it should be away from us and it's clear in the rules where the lair should be, and I don't want to rotate the lair towards us. Which does mean there is a tomb, a white crystal mine and a tower, and the dragon is sitting here in its lair. The unfortunate part is now that to hire the gunners we would need improvisation, which is 5 influence, and then we have 6, 7, 8. But due to the -1, we would need 9. So we do need the last card, which does mean we just have to end the turn and hire them in our last turn, which is really sad. If you would have any other influence card, we could even use the last turn to kill a dragon or something else, but all these cards will be squandered, unfortunately. Actually, we do have a shield, so we are actually sitting at 0. I think I mentioned it in planning at some point, but forgot again. But does that matter? Because if we play all the cards, we will get a rage only for the last turn. We will have gunners, but they don't do anything by themselves. And I just realized I also miscalculated that the dragon will not destroy anything else, because this is our 6th turn, but the dummy will, after us, announce the end of round in his 6th turn, which does mean the dragon does not destroy anything in his 6th turn again. And we will have a 7th because we are this round before the dummy. So he's not destroying anything at all. Which might have been a mistake then to not move first, so the dragon leaves us the monastery. But let's not dwell on that. And I don't think there's much to do with this day, so let's just use the shamanistic ritual now. That's 5 influence. The shield cancels the reputation, 6, 7, 8. So we can pick up the gunners. This is flipped, but it's the end of round then soon anyway. All these cards are played. This is re-rolled, stays blue again. We do draw the rage, dummy announce end of round. Dragon does not have another turn. And we have a turn with just the rage and the gunners. That would be an attack of 9, even 10. 11 if we power it, but we would need 14. And we are not leaving the city, so I think that's it for the second day. This went a little bit less smooth than I would have anticipated. And we do still have 2 wounds in the deck, unfortunately, because we could not heal them. But we do have the Firestorm for the final attack. We do have a ranged fire attack of 3 with the Fire Bolt. We do have the Underground Travel to get into position, a Gem Pouch to get us more mana. The Crushing Bolt is physical range attack. With concentration we can increase either to 5, that's nice. We have the Blood Ritual for black mana, but we only need 1 because we have only 1 spell. And that's pretty much it, but we do have the Gunners, and we will see what units we get, and we could then get more units with influence. But we don't have our 4th slot yet, and we didn't level yet again, so we did not pick up into the heat yet. Let's ready the scouts and the golems. The day tactics are eliminated. It did not actually play a role now that the dummy went after us. He announced the end of round soon enough that the dragon doesn't destroy anything, and we did not use our last turn, so it didn't matter. The dummy's picking up a white crystal and a white card. That's a bit bad. So Swift Bolt. I am getting rid of Restoration and Counterattack, because I'm picking up into the heat anyway, and I don't want Restoration, but I won't get a spell anyway. Let's get rid of the advanced actions from the monasteries. The advanced action offer refreshes with Magic Talent and Mana Storm. Magic Talent is interesting. Mana Storm not that much. Flame Wall could be good. It's a lot of attack or block. The heads all count as individual enemies, unless they are defeated already in the ranged attack phase. And we did not pick up the Autumn Mages, of course. And without getting called to glory, we could not pick them up. Maybe getting the spell and going to a dungeon would also have been an idea. But I do like that we explored everything now, so we are really set up for the last round. If we would have gone to the tower and then to the dungeon, we might have been totally out of position. The 2 silver units, which might be easier to recruit if they have a range attack, are Red Cape Monks, not a range attack, and another Peasants, also not a range attack. And the much more important elite units are another Gunners, that's so nice, and Fire Mages, which do have a range attack. It's not as large as the Gunners, but again it's free and they give us a lot of mana. But I think the Gunners are just insanely good pull. The source of the second night starts with 2 blue, a red and a white. Let's shuffle the dummy deck and our deck, and then we are good to go for the final round. One thing I really have to keep in mind is that if I'm not attacking the dragon in my 3rd turn, he will attack me, because he only stops once he's challenged for the first time in his lair. Which does mean I would have to, for example, get into this tower, or just endure the heads by myself without ignoring any of them, and the attacks would be level 4 at that point. That should be enough for the dummy deck. It's really so nice that we got another Gunners, but it's a lot of red mana that we need. So 2 for the Gunners, 1 for the Fireball, 1 for Into the Heat. It's already 4, but we do have the Ritual. We might be able to get another Crystal and maybe the Source or Mana Draw. But mana management will be quite important. Looking at the heads, if we are not seeking shelter anywhere, this can still be run to the golems because Swift and Poison do not matter since they are resistant. This we could do with a Determination because it's a 5 physical attack that's poisonous. The level 4 here is also physical, so it's just 4 attack. Actually, that's true for both heads, so on level 4 they both are physical and paralyze. But the good news is that regular block will actually do. But if we are spending the golems, we would have to replace them. But maybe that's actually a good idea because with Into the Heat, we can't assign damage anyway. And we do want units that have a range attack. And we will not get a 4th slot, unfortunately. But we definitely need to level. So we do need to kill a dragon. That's also a problem because 14 attack is quite wasteful. So it should be enough for our deck. Let's draw the starting hand. There's a Crushing Bolt. A Tranquility, that would be nice if you draw it together with Wounds. A Rage, a Wound, okay, that's not bad. A Blood Ritual, that might be a bit early. And a Fireball, that might be a bit early because we need that for the dragon. Let's move that over here. And the available tactics, of course, are from Dusklong Night, Mana Surge and Sparring Power. And I'm leaning towards Sparring Power, but let's discuss this. I just consulted the manual again, and the good news is that we are in the fortified site, so we can ignore 2 heads, and cities are never destroyed, so we can actually use it for free. So we can really stay here and prepare, and trivialize the attack of the dragon by just ignoring 2 heads and getting rid of the other 2. For example, by running this into the golems, and then using Determination, or blocking one of these by activating the Guardian Golems for mana from block 4, for example. So that's the good news. So there's no hurry to get anywhere, but we really need to get rid of this dragon. And unfortunately, this has 14 armor, and we only have 4 for Rage, 3 from Crushing Bolt, that's 7, Night Sharpshooting, that's 9. We can, of course, kill it by using the Gunners, but we don't want that, and we can't ready them. Actually, we can with Ruthless Coercion. So maybe that's a play, but if we go for Sparring Power, we are not guaranteed to get that. At least not until we pop that. And I think we can use that before the battle. That might be a way. Actually, I think this might be something that we would have to chance, because we do need to get going, and making hiring easier, leveling, and picking up Into the Heat and another skill is really appreciated. At this point I had to pause the game for several days, and I realized that I misplayed the city, in the sense that I have a shield, so I should have a hand limit increase of 1. I think this would have made quite a difference in the last round. I will see that in the review. But for now that means that I have actually a hand limit of 7, so I will draw another card, which is the Firebolt. And as far as the tactics go, I think it's clear that we are not playing a Long Night or From the Dusk. And Mana Surge is probably also not that useful. Sparring Power is really a good option if you want to take out the dragon in one go. Which does mean there's no way to repair our hand, or any other help from the tactics for that matter. Which does mean we need a good turn 1 with the hand as is. And since we do not have any influence, and we really need to kill this dragon to level, pick up Into the Heat, and repair reputation to higher, I think we need to think about how to kill a dragon. We would need an attack of 14, of course, because we will not block it. We'd have a Rage for 4, we'd have a Night Sharpshooting for 2, that's already 6, so we are lacking 8 damage. The Gunners are something that's interesting because there are other Gunners in the offer, and they would provide an attack of 5, 6 if powered. And at that point, even a Crushing Bolt or the Firebolt will do it, or even the Guardian Golems, but I'm not sure I want to spend them before the dragon attacks us. Involving the Gunners only makes sense, since they have a range fire attack of 6, and we are actually already at the limit of fire attack. Since we are only needing 18 for the 2 heads that have ice and physical resistance, the other 2 are actually cold fire resistance, so it won't do anything, or at least it will be so inefficient that I would not plan for that. Which does mean I need more physical range attack, which is why the scouts are so good. Once I have Into the Heat, it's 4 range attack. I have Night Sharpshooting, it's already 6. So even a regular swiftness will kill another head. And then we most likely have to deal with the last head in some other way. Although we do have the Crushing Bolt and the Concentration, it's another 5, and another swiftness in the deck, that would be 8. So we are really close. But we would need all these cards in our hand in the battle without spending any now, so that's quite unrealistic. But the major point is that a Gunner on its own with Into the Heat has a range fire attack of 9 that kills a head. So 2 Gunners would be all the fire damage we ever need. Hence the idea to spend 1 and maybe even replace it, or use Ruthless Coercion to ready them again. I think it works up to level 3, would be 6 influence, which is almost what it costs to hire them in the first place. But what about the Fireball? Usually it's good to keep these cards for the Assault, because it's 8 range attack on its own. It's even Siege, but it doesn't matter, because you are limited in your unit slots. In this particular instance, Though I'm thinking about using the fireball now because it's actually blocking my hand. And if I can avoid using the gunners, just picking up the other gunners makes it guaranteed that we can kill half of the dragon, which is so awesome. Which does mean we already have 2 and 5 if we use the fireball. That's 7, so we need another 7. If we are not going for full range, we also have to deal with the attack. And we do not have an armor 4 yet, so that is 2 wounds. And we already have a wound here. We do have the tranquility, but there are other cards that also reduce wounds. So I'd rather avoid taking more wounds. But the problem really is for range attack, we can bump this up to 8. So by 3, that would net us 10. And if you take the firebolt also, then it would be 13. So we are still lacking a point. If you use the gunners and cast this as a firestorm, we are just done. And we also have to keep in mind if we really want to use Into the Heat, 2 gunners, that's already 3 red mana. We do have 2 crystals, but we would need 3. So I think it's clear that we are using the tranquility to heal. But the question is, do we take an extra wound here, which means that we would need to power this? Or do we actually use this card? If we cast this as a firestorm, we need black mana, so we would need this or the blood ritual. This could also give us the last red crystal, but it would mean that we need another green mana. So maybe let's make some space and discuss how we would kill a dragon. At that point, since it's a foreign scenario, it doesn't even matter what the dummy takes as a tactic, so just give him from the dusk. And since I tend to forget this, I should really place this somewhere else, and then maybe even put a card around this, but let's do this after thinking. Alright, so we will cast this after the battle. This I would really like to keep because it's physical. This might be a crystal, so we could use this to free it up, and it's just fire damage, so it doesn't do much. If you're not killing the dragon at range, then a rage will just be 4 damage. This will be 8, that's 12, that's 14. So no units. An extra wound that we need to heal, this we could even hold on to for the battle. But we would need the black mana, so this would mean using this. And we would need 2 red, one is in the source, one could be this crystal, so it's a wash with regard to the crystals. We do have a mana pouch still, so we would not need to hold on to this. And we still need the green mana to heal 2 wounds. So maybe this is green. This is the black that we need, and a red crystal, so we are at 3. 1 red from the source, and this pays for the rage. The problem really is that we need to hire, and we do not have that much influence in the deck. So if we are spending any units, readying them even with Ruthless Coercion would mean that this card itself is no longer available for hiring, and it might be under sparring power. If we are really unlucky, all the influence cards are under sparring power. Once we kill the dragon, we will be at neutral reputation, so the -1 will be gone, and we have a shield, so the gunners will actually cost 7, which is a promise and 3 cards, unfortunately, or Ruthless Coercion and 2, or an improvisation and 2, or Ruthless Coercion and 1, or an improvisation and 2. Or if you get any combination of cards, then we can actually do it. But that means that we should not plan on having this 2 ready units. So if we're using the gunners now, we almost have to replace them, and then using the fireball will be a bad idea. So I think we can't just use the gunners in the fireball, because this is far too much fire range attack that we are then squandering on a dragon instead of using it on the Apocalypse Dragon. I think I like the overall idea to use the fireball instead of the gunners, because then we can have a better grooming round, because it makes it much easier to groom our hand for the final battle and just have the units ready that kills half of the dragon, so 2 heads. We also have to keep in mind that we will pick up Into the Heat and not using it until the final battle, so it's another card that's clogging up the hand. So maybe that's an argument against holding on to this. It's just physical damage 3, which is also the swiftnesses, and we do have 2 in the deck. So if the scouts Into the Heat, that's 4, that's 6, any swiftness will kill another head. So maybe we should use them. This is 6 damage, which doesn't mean the fireball will be another 8. The sad thing is that this will then be useless. But the problem is if we are not increasing this by 3, then we are lacking a point of damage. And we are not using the scouts because we can't be sure that we can ready them, and they are our source of physical range attack. And this will cost a lot of mana, of course. That's 4 mana in total, and we still would need a mana here, so that's 5 mana in total. But we do have 1 from the source from here, and this will be plus 2 mana. But we will end up with a wound in the hand still. One consideration is also that the rage can provide 4 damage. That's exactly 1 more, so it fills that gap of this inefficiency. But it means that we are taking 2 wounds, or we have to wound a unit. But maybe we should just take the wounds and make a resting turn. Because I do want to spend the 3rd turn, of course, in the city. Because it's defending us from 2 attacks of the head, behind round 4. So we are by now at a 4 physical freezing attack, a 3 swift and poison physical attack. I think that's again perfect to just bump into the golems. Another physical 4 freezing and a 5 poisonous. And if you can bump this into the dragon and ignore 2, I think it ends up with us needing 4 block, which would be a rage and the golems. For example, if we also have them still available to activate them. The point with the golems is that if we are using them now, we can probably replace them with the another gunners because we do not have a 4th slot and we really need our range units. The dragon will give us 7 fame, which brings us to 38, but there's a lot of fame missing to get our force command slot. The White City would also allow us to reveal new units to fish for something else that's not fire damage, but I do think we are lacking influence, and even after Dragon we are still at +1, so it would still cost us a card. And we need to either spend them or the Fireball to even kill the Dragon, so I think it doesn't matter in the end that this is fire damage. I'm actually quite happy that a Gunner with Into the Heat will just kill a head. So if we are just making a resting turn, we should probably just use the Rage. With the sharpshooting it's already 6, so we only need 8 more damage. At that point the wound doesn't matter that much, so maybe that's just our damage for the Dragon. That would cost 3 mana. As for the source, the 2 blue and the white don't do anything, so I think it's clear that we are using this now. And I do think at that point I just want to use the Blood Ritual, which would be 1 wound, 2 from the Dragon, 1 from the Fireball. But at that point I'm not sure this makes too much sense, because we do have to draw something to actually be able to rest, unless we are not using Tranquility at all and just drop the Tranquility, which is a big hit to our score, but who cares about that? Maybe that's actually a good idea then, to not draw for a turn and just get rid of it all. So 1 from the Fireball, 1 from Blood Ritual, 2 from the Dragon, 1 we had in hand. Again, I'm using the mana I'm getting from Blood Ritual with gold, which is technically of course incorrect, but it couldn't be anything. And I do want the black, of course. We do need a red, and we would need another red. And at that point I think I'm not even powering this anymore, or I'm not even using it as discussed, so I have a card to sacrifice. There's another wound in the deck, and I would be at 6 cards already, so I'm not drawing anything, not even Into the Heat. But maybe that's the most efficient way, and I think I want a crystal from that, so I'm actually at 3, and we can power the Gunners and the Into the Heat. And we will be able to hold on to this. The alternative would be to not do that, but you can't flip it back in a resting turn. But we can, once we are sitting at the city, to groom our hand. This could eliminate 2 wounds. So Tranquility and 2 wounds would mean 3 cards. If we use this for a crystal, it's 4, so we're actually drawing 3 cards. But we would have to toss something else to rest. So maybe it's a play to use this after all and get rid of 1 more wound and these 2 cards. And if we get a crystal from this, we are just holding on to 4 cards. We will draw the Into the Heat and 2 others. And I think we probably have to hold on to Crushing Bolt then, because if we are using this for a crystal now too, we might end up just drawing cards that we do not want to toss for resting, and that might really screw us over. Let's put the Dragon here. Of course we could also not use the Firestorm, but instead use the Crushing Bolt. That would also net us 1 less wound. Let's plan that through for a second. We would then have played everything. That's also 8, 2 and 4, so 14. 1 from Blood Ritual, 2 from the Dragon. We heal 2, so we are actually drawing 5 cards. And with any luck we draw the last wound and can make a rest where we get rid of all 3. And there will be a card to toss, I hope, because we get Into the Heat and 4 others. And we are sacrificing the Crushing Bolt, but I don't think we get to kill everything at range. I don't think there's enough range attack in the deck. We are lacking a point. And we don't need to kill all the heads at range. Of course it would mean the control head does not attack. But again, where's this damage coming from? That's 4, 6, and we have 9 from Crushing Bolt into Swiftness. That's 15. And 2 from a concentration, that's 17, and we need 18. And we do need to get through our deck, so I like the idea that we can draw in our second turn as well. And with any luck we will have another Rage or something like this that can block the damage from the last head, or we do the resting turn after the head attacks. But then again, if we are not blocking an attack of the head, this will be really uncomfortable. The freezing heads, of course we can't, so it would probably be a poisonous 5 or something like this, so that's 2 wounds to the discard, 2 to the hand. But a Rage might come in handy to actually kill the last dragon after we dealt with the attacks. And since we do get a skill, there's still a chance that we pick up Regeneration. That could be a combo with this, if we are just grooming our hand, not doing any other action, to just drop a wound for free. I think we just go with this and see where this brings us. So we do decide to go with Spying Power again, because we do want to have a glorious attack on the dragon with a lot of cards in our hand. And the other tactics are just us going early or a long night, or grooming the source, and this is not that important, so we are picking this up, which means the dummy will just go from the dusk, because it doesn't matter at that point. So Tova goes before Krang, and we did realize that we screwed up in the last round, since the White City actually is friendly to us and we have a shield, so we do have a hand limit increase of 1. That would have been nice for the last round. So we did draw another card, which is the Firebolt. As for what to do with the first turn, it's pretty clear with the hand, since we cannot repair it and have to live with what we have, that we do need to kill the dragon, because we do need this Into the Heat. Fix our reputation a bit, it's just 1 point, but we do want these are the gunners. But since the gunners themselves will kill a head each with fire damage and all the other heads are cold fire resistant, we can just play our fire cards here. So the firebolt we don't need. We are playing this for a crystal. Let's do that. Let's make a discard pile here. We are then using the blood ritual, which is also a bit sad because it's a mana card that we would need in an assault, but we don't have any spells actually. Just one and we already cast it, so it really doesn't matter. So we use the red die from the source to cast Blood Ritual, getting a wound. And we mark the 3 arbitrary mana we get with gold, although it's technically not correct. So this is the wound. We power then a Rage, the regular Fireball, and a Crushing Bolt for a total attack of 3, 5, 4, and a Night Sharpshooting for 2. So that's 3, 8, 12, 14, which kills the dragon, since we do not block it. But the dragon will attack us, of course, and we have an armor of 3. It's an cold attack of 4, so we are getting another 2 wounds. So let's clean all this up. Those are cards that we do not have for the final assault, of course. So this leaves us with a Tranquility, a wound that we already had in hand, and 3 new wounds. So we are flipping the Shamanistic Ritual for a green, cast a Tranquility to heal 2 of the wounds. So 2 are thrown away. Tranquility is also played. And our hand now consists just of 2 cards. Of course, we would have to put a card under Sparring Power at the beginning of the turn. Let's not forget that. And I also forget Torvak, of course, who is going before us. But let's finish our turn first. There's a reroll. Torvak doesn't care for this. So there's a green mana. That might be nice. And we do get 7 Fame, which brings us to 37. And due to the Blizz rules, it's actually 38. And we do get 2 Reputation. Let's quickly do Torvak before we draw up. So in his first turn, actually before us, he would have played red, white, and white, which is another 2 cards, which is green and green. So that's really not the best. No blue cards. 2 green already out, so we really need to pick up the pace, I think, which is good that we planned for something that actually makes us draw even though we are taking so many wounds. So this is dead, and the end of our first turn then makes us draw up to 7 again because of the city. That's 5 cards. Determination, Underground Travel, Mana Draw, Stamina, and a March. So all in all, not that interesting. The Underground Travel, of course, is welcome. And after the third turn, when the dragon attacks, some of these cards might actually be useful to not get more wounds. But it's our first turn then, and now it's the dragon's first, in which he destroys a site, and it's the closest to the lair now, so it could be the Mage Tower, the Tomb, or the Mine. And I think I want to go with the Mage Tower. I don't see us traveling there to pick up another spell. They're all not that interesting for us. Tremor doesn't work, Flame Wall is another fire source, and Demolish does not work. So this would have been Illusionists, and the tower is gone, and we mark the space with Rubble. Alright, so that's the second turn then for Torvak, and he plays red, white, and white again. So another 2 cards, blue, and another blue. So that's a little bit better, but still he played 5 cards, so already at 10. So he has 9 left in the deck. And this brings us to our second turn. And before we plan, we should really not forget to put a card under Sparring Power. We will not pop that yet. Alright, so what to do in our second turn? We do not leave the city, of course. We are now at +1, so we need 7 influence. There's no influence cards whatsoever. The Underground Travel is something that we do probably want to hold on to. Although we do also have the Song of Wind. But it could be the initiation of the battle as well. Although this would take another black mana, so actually 2 mana. And the dragon is in Wasteland, so if we, for example, go to the mine before actually attacking him, it's just 4 movement, which usually is just 1 mana. But the question is, what are we doing with these movement cards? And do we hold on to the mana draw as well? We probably hold on to the Determination as well, just for the defense against the dragon. That would, with a blue mana, and we have 2 in the source, just block the head. That's really nice, which would mean that we do not even need to spend the Guardian Golems, which at that point just means that we will probably rest and toss the March. We need to at least toss a card together with the wounds. We cannot flip this back. And do we hold on to this as well? If you're not seeing the cards that you want and you're running out of time, you end up regretting not tossing more cards. So you really have to be sure if you want to hold on to individual cards. Actually, I just realized if we are defending with Determination and a blue source against the dragon, we would have to fully attend the combat and lose a full turn. And I'm not sure I want to do that. So it's probably just activating the Guardian Golems and just playing that. But I like that over Rage, as said, because Rage gives us a lot of attack against the head, because we do need to kill it if we can't kill it at range. And 4 is enough to block any of these heads, so we can ignore this and the other one, run this into the golems, and then we are fine. So I think this is a good card to hold on to. Mana Draw usually is a good card too, because you do need a lot of mana. We might end up getting more white if we are resting on the mine for a turn or 2, but I'm not sure this will actually happen, because the city gives us a higher hand limit, and once we leave that, we lose the hand limit increase. But if not, we would have to initiate the battle with Song of Wind, which does reduce Wasteland to 2 and the lakes to 0 if we pay blue. So there's really just 3 movement plus the 2 here that we need, but it would be really mana intensive. We would need to power Song of Wind, pay another blue, and pay another movement card. But maybe we will have enough cards at our disposal, but that means that mana draw is probably a good idea to hold on to. The Underground Travel does not work through lakes, of course, so you would have to travel like this. And at that point, I think the Song of Wind is probably just better. And we can plan for this if we exhaust our deck and then pop Sparring Power in the last turn. So is Underground Travel even good? And the answer is probably not. And this will clog up our hand and we'll regret this later. Is there any sense in moving anywhere else? There's unfortunately nothing left here. It's all destroyed. So that's the, I think, balancing act with this kind of scenario where you just have the dragon without an entourage, that your progression is somewhat hampered. So we are still at level 6 and there's really no way to get to 7 without using too much firepower to then also take out the dragon. So there's really just that dragon left. And with 9 fame, this will exactly not let us level, so why even bother? There's also the tomb, of course, which is also a dragon. I don't think we have the firepower for that. Well, we do, but we want to preserve it for the dragon. Which makes me think that we are dropping all this. There are at least 2 other movement cards in the deck and a Song of Wind. So I think we just make a resting turn, hold on to this for the turn 3, hold on to this for the final fight. And we really need to get to our influence cards to pick up the gunners. But probably not in turn 3 because we still need the golems to defend. So I think this has to do for the second turn. So at this point we just make a preparation turn. We do have the 2 wounds in hand. We do have the Underground Travel, which doesn't work through lakes. So it's really awkward. And we do not want to go anywhere else, because we really do not have resources to spare. We need to prepare for the final fight. And even burning stuff like this down would take some range attack. Units won't help even. So we are just banking on Song of Wind to cross the lake for free. It costs a lot of mana, which is also the reason why we toss these 2, because we have their counterparts still in the deck. One is Savage Harvesting, of course, and we really need to seed more cards. So we make a resting turn where we cannot turn this back, but we are getting rid of the wounds and 3 other cards. And Determination we keep for the third turn to defend against the dragon. So we are drawing up 5 more cards. Let's see what we get. There's the Savage Harvesting, the Endless Gem Pouch, a Wound, an Improvisation, that's good, it's influence, and a Concentration that we probably want for the final fight. Alright, so in the second turn the dragon will not do anything, which brings us to the third of the dummy. Let's see if he slows down a little bit at least. So there's white, there's green unfortunately, and another green. Okay, so I think we are almost out of greens. No, not really. But it is a short turn, I appreciate it a lot. Which brings us to our third turn, where we will be attacked afterwards, so we need to plan for that. Let's put a card on the Sparring Power, to not forget. But what to do now? Hiring now is probably not a good idea, because again, we do not have a slot, and we do not want to replace those. And the Guardian Golems we need now for this turn, so we will hire in the next turn, I think. So this is something we hold on to. The Concentration I really want for the range attack. It will also allow us to do this with green instead of white. Savage Harvesting might also be good to get more crystals, but then again, do we have the cards for this? But there might be cards that we don't need, and this might be the card that we power and recoup some of the mana for the attack. Because the dragon is revealed information, so we know once we pop this, how we get there, how we do the assault. So maybe this is actually useful then. Which could mean that we do another resting turn, but we also need to discuss the pouch. It's 2 gems now, unless we are rolling red. Could be a fame, but it doesn't do much. And you would get a mana of each color and the black, even though the black is currently not useful because we are not using any spells. This, of course, we also need to hold on to, unfortunately. And the Improvisation needs us to toss a card, but at least it's then 5 influence, 6 with our reputation bonus, so it's 2 more cards that we need to toss. Unless we are using Concentration. That might be a play, to be honest, to just preserve cards. Scouts are 4, 6, so yeah, any regular swiftness will do. There's 2 in the deck, so maybe we don't need a Concentration, because it's quite pointless for at least killing the one head at range. But we do need enough attack, just regular attack, to finish the last head. And the rage and concentration would already be 6, which does mean another swiftness will do it. And without this, and this we will use now, well, it's 2 more cards. But I think I'm running a bit thin on cards. And to be honest, I do not even know what card we picked up. Did we pick up a Stout Resolve? That's the problem when you have to lay down the game for several days and come back to it. Well, resting would mean dropping a card, and I'm not sure I want to do that, so I think it's playing the pouch, to be honest. White crystals would be good, green crystals would be good. Even blue might come in handy, but we do still have one, and I don't think we have that many blue cards, so one might be enough to power a stamina, for example. Actually, no, we need another blue for Song of Wind to cross the lake. So maybe a stamina and Song of Wind, so 2 would also be appreciated. I think it's actually nice to have this. If we roll gold, we can choose. 3 other sides are good. Fame and red is quite pointless, so yeah. We'll see what we roll probably. but it means holding on to a card. If you do have a Stout Resolve in the deck, I should really know that. Then 1 wound might actually not be that bad. But I don't see us resting now. So probably just play that, defend against the dragon, and then higher. But we would just draw 1 card, so I would have to drop anything for the improvisation. Probably the Savage Harvesting then, to be honest. So concentration, improvisation, Savage Harvesting, pick up the Gunners and continue drawing. How many cards do we have still in the deck? So it's just 5. We are running out of resources quite quickly. 1 will go here, and after playing all this, we will draw the rest of the deck anyway. But I currently don't see how we do any better, so let's try it. So this will be a really slow turn, but we don't see us resting, because it will cost us a card. So we really have to play something and just hold on to the wound. And we are just playing the pouch now. So we are rolling 1 by 1. First is blue. That might not actually be that bad because we need blue for the Song of Wind and maybe a stamina. And the other one is red, unfortunately. And just to point it out, in the new rules, there is actually a variant that says alternatives when gaining a random mana crystal. And it's meant to be applied in exactly the situation when you roll a basic color and you already have 3, or if you roll gold and you have already 3 of each color, or if you're rolling black and you would normally just get a fame. And the suggested variant is to reroll until you roll a color that is allowed, gain a random faction token, that would be huge, I think, which is also a fame, but of course it can be much better. And we would have to decide before the game which faction this may be from. And if you're playing with quests, you reveal a quest card and place it in your player area. You may perform steps on a quest card at any time. You may announce that other players may perform steps on a quest card. You may not reverse this decision. Keep the quest card until it's completed. So I'm not sure I want to use any of those because we didn't agree on that beforehand. I just thought of it because we just rolled red, which does mean we get a red token, not a crystal. I'm not sure we have a use for this. And I think I should announce what I'm playing with as a variant before the game, so I'm just taking it as a red token, which we can't use, so it's useless. I hope this will not be the deciding factor that we are lacking exactly 1 mana at the end of the game. But that's it for our third turn. So we are drawing a card, which is a swiftness. And then the dragon will attack us, so he will fly out of his lair again, attack us in the White City. And as already prepared, we will then ignore 2 heads. Let's say these lower 2. Then these 2 will attack us, and they are now level 4, which means this is a physical 3 attack, swift and poisonous. But the golems have 3 physical resistance, so we are just ignoring this. And this is a physical attack of 4 that's paralyzing. And we are activating the golems and playing the determination for another block 2, so that's block 4, so we are also safe against that. For this we did not need to fully attend, we did not use our skill or any source die, so that's the third turn of the dragon, and we get to the force of the dummy. Fortunately he has still 6 cards, but he could still hit blue. Let's see what happens. Blue, that's really good. But we do hit another blue. So this exhausts his deck, 3 more cards, which does mean we have only 2 turns left instead of 3. So what are we doing in our fourth turn? Since there are still 4 cards here, we will have to put 1 under Sparring Power again, and then make sure we can draw these 3 cards, which should not be a problem. I just realized that we completely forgot to level up, which is bad because we would have Into the Heat in our hand and would have seen other cards later. But of course it's clear that we did pick it up, but I have to look which order the cards came out to see if this all still works out and what card we are lacking. Obviously we will not have Swiftness, I think. Probably that's just it, but let's see in the video. But let's also do the skill choice then. And the skill choice is between Regeneration. Okay, that changes things too, because we could have replaced this card. This might actually be easier to fix than if we pick that up. And the other choice is Curse, which reduces an attack or an armor, and it's restricted to non-fortified enemy if you're using it in the range and siege attack phase. Unfortunately, this will not work on dragon. It will work on the attack of the dragon, of course, but not on the armor. That might be the armor point that we are missing to kill everything at range if we would have kept the Crushing Bolt. But I don't think it's worthwhile picking that up because of Arcane Immunity. And the -1 I think is not that important. The control head will be 9 damage unless we are using Influence, which we don't have, so it's just 3 wounds. And for the other heads, we will have to deal with the heads that are cold fire resistant, so either one of those. And this one is just a swift 8 attack physical, and -1 doesn't do anything because it's just 7 then. And we won't have the golems anymore. And this one is actually a 7 cold attack that freezes, so I think we are just eating the control head in this, so that's 5 wounds, it's not knocking us out, so it's probably good, so I don't think this is useful. Since we are picking up the last card in a row, we could also pick this skill from Tovak, which might be a good idea because it's actually giving us +4, and we do need a lot of points to actually kill the last head. So we could use this, for example, in our second to last turn to get a red mana, and then in the last turn where we attack the dragon, we will use the red mana to power a rage for 4 attack +4, that's actually already 8. and this sounds like a huge idea. So I do really like this, but we have to see if the regeneration makes it easier to fix the mess that we forgot our level up. So let me look that up. Alright, so I looked it up, and actually both ways of playing would be feasible. The regeneration play would probably have the better choice, to be honest, because it could mean that we just replace wounds with cards and can actually flip this back because we are not doing resting turns or doing anything else. As it is, we rested in turn 2 and played the pouch in turn 3, which, now that I think of it, is actually a special effect, so we could do that while resting. And in this turn 3 we did not do anything else. So you can flip back Shamanistic Ritual anyway. But nevertheless, regeneration would have been nice, but it's more work to compensate. So what we will do is we will not take this, of course, and we will not take regeneration, but instead take Mana Overload. As for Into the Heat, we would have had this in turn 2 already, so we could not have tossed a March. In turn 2 we tossed 5 cards, 2 wounds, Underground Travel, Stamina and March. But a March would not have been in our hand. Which does mean for the pouch turn we would have 2 less cards, so neither the improvisation nor the concentration, but we could still do the pouch play and discard the March. So we are catching up by 1 card, which just means at this point we have not seen the swiftness yet, but instead have the Into the Heat in our hand. And then we are synced up again. But as I just alluded to, in the pouch turn we did not do any other action, so we could have flipped that back, which is quite huge actually. So let's refresh the advanced action offer, which shows us learning, which is a bit too late I think. Alright, but now we fixed everything, and the dummy is already in his 4th turn, which is the second to last because now he will announce the end of round. So we have our 4th turn and then we need to kill the dragon. The dragon, by the way, has flown back to its lair, and we play our 4th turn without 7 cards because we did play the divination in the turn of the dragon. Alright, so what this means is that we will hold on to Mana Draw and Into the Heat, of course. That was the plan. We do have to hold on to the wound, unfortunately. And then we can play Concentration, Improvisation, Tossing Savage Harvesting. We can use the green source die for this. And this gives us 7 influence, 0 from this, but 1 from the shield. So we are at 8 and we can hire the Amethyst Gunners. We will then draw the rest of the deck, because it's now 4 cards and we have 3 in our hand, so this works out perfectly. And then pop Sparring Power and see if we can kill the dragon and win. So now, second to last turn, we are pulling a green die from the source, playing Concentration on Improvisation, Tossing Savage Harvesting. That's 5 plus 2, 7 influence. 1 from the shield is 8, so we can pick up the Gunners. And we are replacing the Golems, which have served us very well this game. This was really an MVP unit, due to its resistance and the overall blocking effects. But this means we have 2 Gunners now, which are both ready, and the Golems have to go. And this means that we have 3 cards still in hand. We are rerolling this. Comes a black, not the best color actually, but we are drawing the rest of the deck. We have already placed our 4th card under Sparring Power at the beginning, so now we are drawing up to 7 because we are still in the city. And there's the Swiftness, of course, and then there's the Ruthless Coercion, Stamina, and Crystallize, which does mean the Song of Wind has to be here. But it's our 4th turn. The dragon doesn't do anything in his 4th turn. In the 5th, the dummy announced the end of round, so we are getting rid of this. And now we made a mistake again. I'm really not up to speed when it comes to not making mistakes, so I'm apologizing for that. But we would have needed to use this, so we can use it in the final turn, of course. And the plan was to use this with Rage, so we can actually get 8 attack from the Rage. So we would have needed to use a red card, which is Improvisation, but unfortunately, we use the green die from the source. So you would need to power this on its own, which is just 5, 6 influence, and then we can use this for the 7th, but we would need to toss another card, and those we have drawn up, of course. So we would need to get rid of Into the Heat or Mana Draw. I don't want to use this, but the funny thing is without Mana Draw we might not even have a red to power the Rage in the first place, because we need 2 here and 1 for Into the Heat. Actually we do have it here, but we have almost no mana left. We need a white for Swiftness, a white for the Song of Wind, but we do have 1 in the source, and then blue. I think it will turn out well, so let's try to get rid of the Mana Draw as well. So that's 7 again. We use this mana then here, so this is still green, which probably doesn't do much for us, but it's not black. But this was the whole point of taking the skill, and I completely missed it in my second to last turn. So mana token red, we have to mark it anyway, so let's put that here. So that's 5, 6, 7, 8. That's really inconvenient, but I really want to make this play. So this goes into the center, which just means that we are increasing a skill by 4 if we are paying with red, which means we have 1 card less, but now it's fixed. We can now activate that with our Rage. So we are in our final 5th turn. It's very a short round, and now we are popping Sparring Power. So this goes under here, and we will reveal these cards, and there should be a Rage in there, there should be a Song of Wind in there. These are the cards that we are banking on to reach the dragon at all, and there should also be, no, the Stamina we already have drawn, okay. But there are certain cards that we will see because we have exhausted our deck and we haven't seen them yet, so let's see. There's a Promise, yeah that's true, we haven't seen it yet. Song of Wind, nice. Rage, nice. And a second swiftness, that's also true, yeah, we didn't have that yet. Alright, so this is the final moment. We now have to kill the dragon, but it's all open information now. Let's see if we can do it. So let's take these cards. We do not have a Stout Resolve, I'm not sure why I thought that. I think we have seen it in the game, but it's now useless. We do have 2 swiftness, we have the rage, which I think we want to power with this, but we need a mana for this, which I think has to be this, unfortunately. We'll see. Promise doesn't do us any good. Crystallize might be good, but a Song of Wind and a Stamina was what allows us to assault the dragon in the first place. So let's see if we have enough mana for this. 2 blue, 1 for lakes, 1 for stamina, 1 white from the source. That's 6 movement. Lake is 0. The wasteland where the dragon is standing on is 2, which means with the hills here we have 5 movement to assault. That's 6, so that's taken care of. The Roost Excursion doesn't do us any good, but of course we have to play into the heat. This is where the red mana comes in. We need to power 2 gunners and into the heat. These 2 kill 2 heads with a range fire attack of 9 with into the heat. Then we do need to play a swiftness, and we do still have a white, that's 3 range attack. The scouts are 4, that's 7, and this is 9, this kills another head. And this rage will be 8 attack due to the mana overload, which doesn't mean a promise, for example, will be enough to kill the head. And we have 2 unused cards in the end, which might mean we preserve a crystal. But I think that's exactly as planned, which I do like, just to point it out now, is that this is all open information. So the final battle doesn't reveal any tokens. You know what level you are up against. So it's easy enough to plan for this. We are somewhat out of mana because I'm just thinking about the control head, which is 9 psychic attack. And the psychic attack can be blocked with influence. That's efficient block, so to speak, and all the other block sources are inefficient. If we would have another mana, we could have 6 influence here, and we have 2 cards still here that we can play sideways for 8, which is 1 short. So all in all, I think this is not helpful. There's no way to kill the last head in range as well, so we need to deal with the attack of the control head and one of the heads. And the attack of the head that's easiest to just take into the face is the 8 physical swift attack, because the swift doesn't matter at that point, so it's just 8 attack. That's 3 wounds, and the control head will also give us 3 wounds. This would unfortunately knock us out, but since we have used all our units in the range phase, we can actually assign damage to a unit as well, so we are only getting 5 wounds when we are not being knocked out. So at that point I think I'm saving this crystal and play a swiftness as well. And I think this should do it, which does mean, if I'm not mistaken, that picking the level 9 was a really good choice, because level 10 we would not have been able to do, I think. We would have a spare swiftness, of course, that could have augmented the range attacks to maybe make it work if we would have the mana, but we are not having the mana. So yeah, it was quite tight as it is. I did not play optimally, especially in the 3rd round where I was at the city and did not increase my hand limit, so that's bad. So there's some wiggle room to improve, but I do think level 10, 11 or 12 would probably have just killed me. But let's see if this really works out and go through it one more time. So we do think we can do it, which is really nice, but it really comes down to the last mana point. But let's see. We are taking a white source die for Song of Wind and using a blue crystal to also pay for traveling lakes. This means plains, desert and wastelands are now reduced by 2, which means the dragon can be assaulted for 2, he's in wasteland, and the lakes are actually 0. So the movement costs we need to assault the dragon are 5, because we have hills in between as well. So there are 2 movement points from Song of Wind itself, and then we can use a stamina without paying a crystal. And now that I'm thinking of it, we could even use any other card, but let's just stick with the swiftness. So that's 6 movement points, that's enough to assault a dragon. So let's get rid of those. Krang glides over the lake. 2. Actually, it's more efficient to just use this wasteland. This is counterintuitive, but it's reduced to 2 as well, which actually does mean that the swiftness is still available. That's really nice. So we have 2 from Song of Wind to glide into this wasteland and then assault the dragon. So let's move the dragon a little bit here. We are standing here, and now it's the final confrontation. We then of course use Into the Heat with a red crystal. So now all of our units have their attack increased by 3, but they cannot be assigned damage. And at that point I think I need to shuffle this around. This is really a messy game. My apologies. I think I might actually be screwed. That's a bit sad. But let's continue with the original plan. So we are now activating the gunners for 9 ranged fire attack and these gunners for 9 ranged fire attack. Which does mean that this head here, which at level 9 has 9 armor and is just cold resistant, will be dead by 1 gunner. And also this head, which at level 9 will be just physical resistant and has 9 armor, is also dead by another gunner. So these 2 gunners kill these 2 heads. Let's put them under the control head. We then activate the scouts for range attack of 4 due due to Into the Heat. We do have Night Sharpshooting for 6, and with a white crystal we have a swiftness that brings it up to 9. So at that point we have 9 physical range attack, which makes us kill this dragon, which at level 9 has armor of 9 and is cold fire resistant, but it was a physical range attack. Which leaves the control head, of course, and we can't kill the other head at range. So this head at level 9 has also 9 armor and is cold fire resistant, and it has an attack of 8 physical, which is swift, but we do not intend to block it anyway. Our plan was to retaliate with a rage, using Shamanistic Ritual for another red, because we have used 3 red crystals already, so those are all used. Which triggers then Mana Overload, so the next card we play, which gives attack, block of any kind or influence, is improved by 4, so the rage will do 8 damage, and another sideways card like Swiftness will then kill the dragon with an armor of 9. So that would kill this head, unless we are being knocked out, and I think that's the elephant in the room now, because we will get 8 damage here. We can't assign to units, this is due to our own doing, since we played Into the Heat. And that's exactly what kills us, I think. Because we have 3 armor, that's 3 wounds. And a control head, there's a psychic attack of 9, there's also 3 wounds. So we are taking 6, which is our unmodified hand limit. And we would be knocked out and lose the rest of our cards. But the point where this becomes really sad is that we have now seen all of our influence cards and not earlier. We would have played them earlier. But psychic attack can actually be blocked by influence. And we do have a promise, a ruthless coercion, that together, if we could power them, would be more than enough influence. But the only crystals we have left are blue and green, because we misrolled a pouch and did not get a second crystal. We would need red, of course, to get these 6, because if we are just powering this, that would be 4, that's 6, 7, and then we are lacking cards. And the wound, of course, we cannot use for anything. So to block this, we would need a red mana here, which we can do with Crystallize and the blue crystal, producing a red token. So that would be 6 influence, and this gives us 8, which is 1 shy of blocking this, and we do not have another card left, because we had to toss the mana draw in the last turn to make it work with hiring. If we had a white crystal, it would also be enough, because then we are actually at 10. So this would let us block this, then we just take 3 wounds and then we can kill it. So that's the idea here, but currently we are shy 1 influence. So just to make that clear, Crystallize with blue gives us a red, so another red token. It's marked with gold because it's an extra token that I do not want to confuse with the crystals I had to begin with. And that would be 8, but it's again 1 shy. And there's no partial blocking, even with psychic attacks. So the game is really balanced on Razor's Edge currently. But there was nothing to optimize here. We need the Song of Wind to reach the dragon, and we need 4 movement. This provides us only 2, so we do need another card, and Stamina is as good as any. We could have used the Swiftness. And of course we do need Into the Heat to make it work with the range attack. It's 9 range attack that we are getting. It's a full head. And the Swiftness we need with the Scouts and the Night Sharpshooting to kill one of the heads. So that's a loss, unfortunately. We can kill 3 heads and then we are knocked out. We can see what happens if we roll with the variant rule for the pouch and see if we can get white or gold, because that would allow us to then power the promise and then block the head, take 3 wounds and be done with it. But it's just out of curiosity. And actually the die comes up gold, so that would have worked out. But again, I really misplayed a lot of stuff in this game. I'm happy that I could fix everything so that it's still a legal game in my book. There was a lot of room for optimization, and as you can see, defeating the dragon at level 9 is already non-trivial. I was lucky that I got both gunners with Into the Heat, so that's 2 heads dead just from 3 cards, so 2 units and 1 card and 2 mana. And the Scouts turned out to be quite good, because they are range attack 4 physical, and the other 2 heads needed physical or cold. I also picked up Night Sharpshooting, that allowed me to kill a 3rd head. Rage killed the 4th if I'm not knocked out, and the Mana Overload might be debatable. I could have taken Regeneration, so see the influence cards earlier, so I can high the gunners without tossing Concentration and Mana Draw. Concentration would already bring it up to 6, and I had a spare Swiftness. So if I can get more mana, and with Mana Draw maybe I could power in another Swiftness, then a Concentrated Rage with a Swiftness would also be 9 damage. But it's hard to tell if this would have worked out, and since I screwed up I had to fix this in the easiest way possible, and this was just to pick up this, which is a good idea by itself, but it does mean I need the 4th red. And this binds this skill here, because I cannot get 4 red crystals, and without a Mana Draw I'm kind of screwed. Of course I can use the Crystallize as well to recolor the crystal here for this, then this is open, but it doesn't matter because I would then need this to power Drusus Coercion, and I'm still at 8 only. Yeah, so I think it's a very close game. Comes down to 1 influence point or 1 mana, 1 crystal. I had a really unlucky roll of the pouch, although I did roll blue and I ended up needing this, but my card management was not good. Using Concentration and Mana Draw just too high was really bad. And not having a hand limit of 7 in the third round meant I had to work around that. There were a lot of situations where I was considering what's left in the deck, what I can draw, and I think with a hand limit of 7, this would have been much easier. So let's count it as a loss. I'm not doing score then, but I found this experience quite interesting, I have to say. I do like the scenario. As you can see, there's a lot of destroyed sides, both because the dragon attacks in solo in the first and the fifth turn. So that's twice per round if the dummy then announced the end of round, which happened a lot, so I was lucky in this sense. And he did not actually destroy a second side in the fifth round because we are still in my fifth turn. But it is a total of 7 sides, so that's 4, 3. So the other 3 are then sides that I probably destroyed just by taking shelter there, although I took shelter twice in the white city. So it doesn't fully add up, so I'm off by 1 for some reason. Maybe the dragon did destroy 2 in a round, I can't really remember. But the city is really an MVP here. Revealing the city in this scenario is really beneficial because it can give you shelter once you reach it. It might be in the third round. So you can use it in the third and the fourth to take shelter and it's not being destroyed. It gives you 1 influence point and you can actually hire good units there. So in contrast to the horseman scenario, I think the city here is much more important. And since the tiles are not ordered, on setup you can reveal the city order layer as your first tile. But I think it's not too hard to actually reveal them all, because as you can see, the map is actually not that large. We have only 5 countryside tiles and 3 core, which makes the map much smaller, so it's easier to reach core early, and you don't have to move that far. I think in this scenario it's much more important to plan out your rounds, that you can take shelter in the third, and picking up the golems, of course, for me was really important. With shelter, you can ignore 1 or 2 heads, and the golem by itself can always take care of 1 head, because no matter what the level was, there was always a head that had a physical attack of 3, maybe swift, maybe poisonous, but it doesn't matter. And in the rounds where the attacks are still small, just activating the golems for a block of 2 is usually also enough to get rid of another head. So that turned out really well, but I like this overall scenario due to the need to plan for this, to plan what sites are being destroyed. For example, here this was really not optimal, because I ended up just getting 1 artifact from a monastery, and I miscalculated here and I had to take shelter instead of taking this. So I went to the oasis instead of raising the monastery. And here the monastery as well was destroyed because I did not reveal the tile, which would have given me more time to destroy this. So I think my snowballing got stuck at some point and I did not get more artifacts. It was also quite bad that I had to play the pouch instead of keeping it for the final encounter, and I think with the regeneration play that might have been much easier. So in the end, these 4 points I probably would have gotten just from the mana from the pouch, because it is an extra red, it is an extra white, so I could have powered a lot more cards. And as already mentioned several times, the dragon ends up having exactly the amount of health that an avatar would have at level 12, so usually 48. So as you can see, both the necromancer and the high priestess have an armor of 4 times 12, which is the same for the dragon. So the dragon is really the same as the avatars when it comes to armor. The problem is that of course you can snipe the avatars to not have them attack, and you can do the same with the dragon, and you are usually not fighting them alone. So at level 12 you would have 7 tokens here, and you would have also 7 tokens with this avatar. And this is completely missing in the scenario. I think this is also the reason why people find it too easy. Although there seems to be some confusion on the basic settings, and of course if you play it on level 4, a head has just 4 health, which does mean a concentrate swiftness will just kill 1 head, and if you have both swiftness and concentration you already kill 2 heads, so just with the starting deck, which is of course too easy, but I think that's true for all the scenarios, no matter if it's a city assault or Volca or the avatars. If you play it on the regular settings, it's far too easy, so please just increase the level to make it more challenging for you. But there still stands the difference that usually when it comes to Volca, when it comes to the avatars, you have to deal with a lot of tokens, and with cities, of course, you have to deal with fortification. And the dragon has none of that, and I think the balancing factor is supposed to be that you are hampered in your snowballing. It's a Bliss rule scenario with just 4 rounds, so you will not be as powerful as you would be without the dragon constantly destroying things, taking opportunities away from you, and potentially giving you wounds. I did not take any, I think, because I had the golems, but I'm not sure this is true if you have a different unit offer and you have to deal with 2 heads yourself. If you're not taking wounds, then it takes you a lot of resources. Just spending a unit every round is a lot less resources than needing to block or heal. But I think the overall scenario emphasizes healing a lot more. And this is also true for what I said here. I could have gone to the monastery and just take the wounds. I ignored 1 head only. So if I'm not going there, it's just 1 head that I have to deal with in comparison. And if I would have any good source of healing, it might just be better to just take that, heal the wounds, and pick up an artifact instead. But I did not pick up any healing. I'm not sure if there were spells for this. Yeah, the downmost spell in the pile is actually Restoration, so we could have picked that up, and it might be a strategy just go for more healing. I think that's the overall idea with this expansion, that the designer tried to emphasize block and healing much more. This is also why people don't like the Sigureth in the pyramid, and maybe they don't like this scenario as well then, because they are set in their ways. But I do like this overall approach, that for Sigureth, pyramids and a dragon, picking up healing and block probably pays off a lot. But these are not the flashy things, and they don't make you too powerful. They prevent snowballing nevertheless. But I'm not the one to complain. I like the overall idea. And having a Blitz scenario after all, so the Horseman was also for round but not Blitz, with a smaller map, with strategic planning where you are in turn 3 and what side to sacrifice. I think that's an interesting value proposition that I will definitely play again. What I can say is that this scenario does not work well with quests, I think. I would not try that, because you have to plan already enough and you're dashing from side to side, everything gets destroyed, and I think the quest will just be a hindrance, an annoyance, and hard to plan for. And I'm also thinking that the active dummy is also not good for this scenario, for the same reason pretty much, that the dummy will also take stuff away from you. And I don't see the point, I think. You are playing against the dragon here already, so you have an adversary. And this is also a limiting factor for the number of turns you want to play. Although the dummy came in clutch to announce end of round to prevent additional sites being destroyed after the 5th turn. But I think you have an adversary already that's taking stuff away from you, so this is also not a good idea. Which is interesting, because against the Horseman is a completely different story. I think both could work well. Quest could be a good addition there, and the active dummy could also be a good addition there. I did not do that to experience the scenario like in its original raw form, but it's really interesting how these scenarios greatly differ. Alright, so I don't think this will be a post-mortem, at least not in the title. Of course I will add subtitles with the mistakes I made, with the non-optimal plays I did, so partly it will be a post-mortem. But after all, we did lose by 1 point, and I want to honor that. If you screw up, then that's that. Yeah, we could have taken the variant rule, but we have to fix that before we start play, I think. And rerolling if you already have the gem might be a good choice. Getting a faction token might be too strong, to be honest. Of course, it depends on the token you get. And with the quests, I'm not sure I like that too much, but we didn't play with quests anyway. Alright, so I hope you enjoyed this insight into Against the Dragon, which is the last scenario before the full 6-round scenario where you play against the Horsemen and the Dragon, which is definitely what I want to try out next. So see you in the next game.